Good evening to everyone. We are here for our January 11th Town Council meeting. It's a very big agenda, but very important because we had an election for this next term. We are trying to keep a 50% rate in here. We all know the COVID concerns, so I know if you come together, it's no sense making you split up, but kind of be aware who's around you if you don't know them. I think it's a very contagious virus out there. Just be aware, and please make sure you wash your hands or sanitize. And if you want to leave after a certain part of the agenda, it's fine. When you're here, you don't have to stay here for the whole time. So we will call this meeting to order. All of our council is in attendance. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I have prayer, and I'm not prepared, so I'm going to kind of wing it. Dear Lord, thank you so much for allowing us to be able to meet in person and be with our residents of this town. Thank you for all that you have given us, and thank you for any wisdom you can shed on us to make good decisions. It's good for all of the residents of our town. Please bless those who have fallen to illness. Please bless those who have lost loved ones over the past year. And please, Lord, just bless us for a very prosperous and happy and healthy and safe 2022. In this we pray, amen.
Amen.
We have the swearing in of town-elect Fred Hamilton and Larry Toomer. Congratulations on y'all's wins. And we have our very favorite Judge Bush. Happy New Year for you. Who do you want to start with? Or do you do both of them? We have Fred? Fred up.
That's how I've got it on.
Oh, I don't see that. Oh, there we go. We have Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Hilton. Do you have anyone here that you'd like to stand with you? Everybody.
Clever.
Everyone with a mask on. Kim, will you hold the... And we have Debbie that's taking pictures. I like your dress. Of course it is.
States and of the United States. As council member of the town of Bluffton, I will equally, fairly, and impartially, to the best of my ability, exercise the truth imposed in me, and I will use my best endeavors to preserve peace, and carry into effect, according to the law, the purposes for which I have been elected. So help me God.
Mr. Toomer, while he's signing, you can meander down. Thanks, sir. And if Mr. Toomer's family or friends who want to stand by him will come forward, that would be wonderful.
out all the things.
Nymphania, come on up.
Congratulations.
Aw.
I, Larry Toomer, do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
qualified
that I am duly
I will
that I will
preserve,
preserve,
protect, and defend
the state
and Bluffton,
of the town of Bluffton and impartially
my ability
to the best of my
best endeavors
best
carry into effect
to carry into effect
according to the law purposes
the purposes
Judge, thank you very much for doing this for us and for serving as our judge, and we so appreciate you. Thank you, sir. Okay, we also part of our swearing in, which happens, the terms are 4 years, but every 2 years we have elections. We also appoint a mayor pro tem. A mayor pro tem is, I guess, how some of you might think is a vice mayor. They sit and take over the meetings if the mayor is not here and really serve as kind of a backup and very involved, as all of council is. So we will open it up for nominations for the appointment of mayor pro tem. Nomination.
Mayor, I'll nominate Larry Toomer.
There's a nomination for Larry Toomer. Any other nominations?
Yeah, Mayor, I nominate Fred Hamilton.
Fred Hamilton. Are there any other nominations? We can only vote for one, so let's do one at a time. There's Larry Toomer and Fred Hamilton, and if you'd raise your hand, those who would vote for Larry Toomer to be mayor pro tem, please raise your hand. 3. Those for Mr. Fred Hamilton, will you raise your hand?
I abstain.
Fred abstains. 1, Bridget. So that is Larry Toomer. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm Larry.
Thank you. So we will probably keep our seats as is, if y'all are okay with that. We want to change up next month. Next is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes, Mr. Stees?
Yes, ma'am. We would ask that council move the item number 5 under formal agenda to item number 1 under formal agenda to accommodate the auditor, so we can complete that first.
Thank you. We can do that. Any other changes?
That's it.
With that change, is there a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. We had regular meeting minutes of December 14th. If you had a chance to read through them, are there any changes from anyone? If not, is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. We have a couple of presentations. First, we have school district student of the month, Dr. Rodriguez. You can see what we do every month to our wonderful students, and we will have them in our chambers very soon. But this is something given to each cluster, and our cluster is more than half of the whole student body population in Beaufort County School District, and it goes from kindergarten, maybe pre-K, to high school, and every school has a nomination, many nominations, and it whittles itself down until there's one from each cluster that gets recognized. And this month, trait was respect and gratitude, and it goes to Raquel Solis of May River High School. This year, Mr. Bornshire, the principal, made an announcement addressing social media challenges that encourage students to tear up school restrooms. Okay, I don't know why he would do that. I don't know if that's what he meant. He made a note of the fact that this act was most unfair to those who work for the school to keep our environment safe and clean. Raquel called Mr. Bornshire in the hall and asked for permission to bring gifts for our school custodians. A week later, Raquel brought gifts from Bath & Body Works that she bought with her own money. She went to each custodian and thanked them for all their hard work. This act was entirely created and executed by Raquel, demonstrating her immense respect, gratitude, and thoughtfulness toward others. And I go back to there, I guess students had been tearing up restrooms, and he was not encouraging them to do so. Sorry about that. That is amazing, and that's our world works best when our students get involved in positive acts, and we just give Raquel a huge shout out, and we will give her a certificate and a coin, and hopefully at some time soon we're going to get all of these students together and really celebrate them. So congratulations to Raquel. Next is our proclamation for Martin Luther King Day. Is someone here to accept this? Quinn? Thank you. If you'll come here, I'll stand behind you. I don't have a mask on, and I'll read it, and then we get a photo. Thank you for being here. And that's not it. How are you? Whereas January 15th, 1929 was the birthday of a great American, the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who gave his life for love, peace, and justice. Whereas the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration is sponsored and hosted annually by the Bluffton Martin Luther King Jr. Observance Committee. Whereas the town of Bluffton is committed to pursuing the ideals of justice, love, and peace, and in Bluffton's 35th celebration, the theme shall be, it starts with you, the urgency of creating the beloved community. Now, therefore, I, Lisa Sulka, Mayor of the town of Bluffton, along with Bluffton Town Council, do hereby designate and proclaim Monday, January 17th as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Thank you for accepting this on our behalf. And if you'll get a picture. For like the series of events, or do you have anything? And if you do, just speak. Can she speak loudly from here, or does she need to be at the microphone? If you just kind of stand right. You can stand up.
So on Friday night, we are having our Black Excellence Ball at Northridge Event Venue. It's from 5:30 to until, and we're just honoring members within the community and their service, their accolades, and for their efforts within our community. And then on Monday, we have the MLK Commemorative Service Day, where we are having students from different schools and community churches come and perform, and essays being read. And that is on Monday. It's at 12:30. It begins at 12:30, and it's going to be start at the May River Theater, which is right next door. And we're going to do a parade down Bluffton, and we'll end at the Oyster Factory Park. Thank you. So that is a list of the events we do. If you would like to follow us or know more about the events, it's at www.blufftonmlk.org.
BlufftonMLK.gov.
.org.
It's hard to hear, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen, and thank you for your participation, Bridget, and anyone else in the room who's been part of that committee. We are not canceling anything. There have been some cancellations on Hilton Head, but please try to come out Monday. It's a great time, and you get to spend a lot of time with young people. They're in abundance, and it's just a nice, pleasant walk. If it's chilly, just put on a coat, and I hope to see as many of you there. We start here at about 12:30, and we'll do a program, and
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock, and then walk. And then please come out. It's very, very important. So thank you for accepting this, Gwen, on behalf of the committee. Next, we have Palmetto Electric. Berl Davis is here, and this is for the presentation of the Rural Development Act Utility Tax Credit Funds in the amount of $55,000. And Berl, you have the mic.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, Town Council. Happy New Year, first thing. Glad to see you in the new year, and appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Back in 1996, the legislature passed an act called the Rural Development Act, and it allowed electric utilities and other utilities in South Carolina to not send all of the tax revenue taxes that we send to Columbia, and allow us to keep up to $400,000 that we can give back to the local communities, give to counties and municipalities that have business parks and own property, and use it for rural development or development in these local areas. And over the last 25 years, Palmetto has given back over $8 million back into Hampton, Jasper, and Beaufort County, and of course the towns within those counties. I'm happy to say that Bluffton has received almost $2 million of that $8 million over the last 25 years. So certainly the town of Bluffton, we've all seen the growth that has gone on here in Bluffton. And so we happy to be part of that growth and being a partner with the town of Bluffton, and certainly in the areas that we serve. So we have a check for $55,000 that the town of Bluffton had requested to utilize this monies for environmental studies, geotechnical studies, as well as tree and topo studies for the Willow Tract. There's approximately 20 acres that the town owns in the Willow Tract. And these funds are going to be used for those studies. And again, we appreciate the opportunity to partner with the town and be such great friends and do something that I think y'all do just like we do, is doing everything that we can to make the communities where we live a better place. And so I'm going to give it to Steve, and I'm sure
We'll
he
get a
will
picture.
take care of it. So
Sure, he'll take care of it. Hand it to Steve, and Stephen can get up
Yeah,
here.
y'all go get a picture.
Y'all want to stand and huddle to your sides of your acrylic? As best you can.
Boy, this is going to be a little hard. You know,
I think you can't get us all in there, can you?
no, it's awkward. Can I just get the mayor? Then and again, I'm sorry to leave anyone
Or if y'all
out.
want, if you feel good about coming outside your, we'll
I'm
let
good.
down.
I'm
We'll let
good.
you do it.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Just,
Earl, thank you very much. You can hand that over to Stephen. Everything I was going to say, you said. And we're just delighted that we do what we need to do to stay in front. We can't do what we do in this town just off of property tax and business license revenue. So thank you for always considering our town when it comes to that. And thank you for all that you do to serve this town and all the different areas.
appreciate that opportunity. And I will mention that the utilities, I know the electric cooperatives, at least in South Carolina, I know are working with Dominion as well. and other utilities, we're going to be lobbying the legislature to increase this amount from 400,000 up to 600,000. So you may be hearing about that, and if you do, certainly your support,
Yes.
it would truly appreciate it, and obviously the funds come back to the local towns and the communities where we serve. So appreciate it very much.
Let us know what we need to do, because we can gather all the towns, the municipals, and we have Mr. Greenway here today, so we'll just do whatever you need us to do.
Okay,
because it is-
great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Berl. Next we have, which was a very exciting email and call from Richard Knoll. Is Richard here? Rich, are you? Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna pretend like you're Rich, so come on forward. You could tell us, I don't recognize anyone behind these masks, so I might know you, but not with that mask on. Hargray's purpose is to empower people and communities to connect and thrive. And you have been so gracious to support our community and our region from schools to you name it, to helping others. This past year, Hargray wanted to stay true to what mattered most, and that's well-being, be it spiritual, physical, financial, or emotional. As part of our police department's community engagement initiatives and long-standing partnership with the town, Hargray understands the importance of contributing to Bluffton's newest project relating to police mental health. And you've contributed $35,000 in honor of a reflection garden to honor the memory of a fallen officer, Jonathan Garcia. And it's just so appropriate to announce that tonight for everyone to hear. Throughout the pandemic, the mental health of police officers has been affected, and your contribution will be a lasting staple in promoting the importance of unity, reflection, and well-being, particularly mental health. And I see your name, Jose Vargas.
Ma'am.
Welcome. I've met you. Now
Yes,
I
ma'am.
recognize you.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you have the mic.
Thank you. So thank you for Bluffton Town Council, Bluffton Police Department, and obviously Mayor Sulka for having us here. My name is Jose Vargas. I'm a regional manager for Hargray. Really thrilled to be here today to celebrate our partnership with the town. With that said, I'm honored to present this donation to the Bluffton Council to the Police Department Reflection Garden. So obviously, we're really happy for our partnership with you. So
Oh,
a
wow.
little bigger check, so.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's, I think all of us on this dais remember Jonathan. I hope many of y'all did. He was just a staple during Matthew, and he and Debbie and I really were connected at the hip during Matthew. Going through town, he did all of our code enforcement, and he just really had a sweet but stern and scary way about him, especially in code enforcement. And you felt really bad about breaking a rule when Jonathan would bring you to the office to talk to. But he hid his mental health issues, and I think all of us need to recognize it's okay to have mental issues. It's okay, but the better thing is to talk about it. And I think it's really, really important for our PD, because I knew him really well, and it caused me a great moment to step back and feel like, what could have I done differently? But he had best friends there that no one really knew that he had the issues he had. So this garden is very important to these guys and women to sit outside and really reflect and really realize it's okay to talk about things. So I'm thrilled, and I cannot wait for the groundbreaking for that. I think it's super important for all of us in this town, and I think we'll all make use of it. So that's amazing. Thank you. Next, we have our DMO. We have Ariana Pernice with the Hilton Head Bluffton Chamber of Commerce. Good to see you in person to do the presentation of our FY23 DMO marketing plan. We are headed into budget year, so
Absolutely.
welcome.
Well, thank you and good afternoon. My name is Ariana Pernice with the Hilton and Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Mayor, Council, Town Manager, and staff for having me and be able to represent our team and all that we've been doing. for the past few months. So tonight's presentation actually is on fiscal year 22 Q1. Based on our contract, this is the reporting timeframe. So we are going to be looking back at July, August, and September, which will be fun. We can go back and see all the great work and partnerships that we had. So if you will, is this my clicker?
Will you start?
Okay. Do you want me to move through it this way? Now I can use this one? No, it's okay. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. Perfect. I got it. So quick metrics update. Where have we been? So again, this is fiscal year 22 Q1. So July through September 21 timeframe. We're going to look quickly at heads and beds. When you look at occupancy, average daily rate, and revenue per available room, we can see that we were quite healthy for those 3 months in 21. And it's a great story, but that momentum that you see here, we have great anticipation for the Q2 findings that will come out in a few weeks in the February timeframe that we will be reporting back to you as well. So the momentum will continue to grow, and we're glad to see that visitors are finding the town of Bluffton and spending the night and spending several nights here, which is great to see. We've held hands for quite a few years on the social media presentation that we've talked about in great length, and our partnership here has really grown and allowed what we'll see in another slide, which is our website performance. So a few years back, we started with that social media strategy, and what we've seen is exponential growth year over year in several platforms. So Instagram continues to be the strong growth platform, but you see that strength in Facebook that continues to shine through. Many of us are on these pages as well, and we continue to build that organic content. We love to use user-generated content. So when our travelers and visitors are out in the town of Bluffton, visiting many of our businesses here, enjoying our parks, and all that the town of Bluffton has to offer, we love for them to post about it. So when we do that, we're able to utilize those images, and they do perform quite well for us. So the July through September timeframe, you'll see a quick few snapshots of those top performers over the course of those 3 months. And so we want to continue that momentum again, which leads into the opportunity with our website. So as you know, we launched the visitbluffton.org website on March 31st of 2021. And as we look back for the July through September timeframe, hits or visits to the website, there were over 40,000. Close to 41,000. But what we really love to look back at is the referrals or handshakes out to businesses. So though the website is out there and people can access it, are they accessing the businesses, which is the heart of the town of Bluffton, and we want people to learn so much more about that, and they are. And they did that over the last 3 months, July through September, by 11,000 handshakes out to those town businesses. We had several events through this time frame as well. There were over 20 events held with over 4,000 participants. Many of you probably joined us at Palmetto Axes, and then our conversation and cocktails at Tio's. But that quickly translates back into not only having all the great assets here in the town of Bluffton, who's talking about it. And from a PR perspective, we had over several impressions, over 605 million. We had 232 million in ad value and over 135 placements. And that's just in a 3-month time frame, which is so great to see. That first touch base. So once they have come to visitbluffton.org and we can see them move through that journey on the website and they want to dive a little deeper into the destination, we've created a standalone official vacation guide for the town of Bluffton, which we're so excited about. This was our first year in 21. We're quickly working on 22 in partnership with the town, working very closely on those details. But just in terms of fulfillment and what 21 brought us, or I should say for this time frame that we're talking about, July through September, there were over 7,333 that we, had left that we were working through, and over 17,722 of the additional guide that we produce as well. So people are talking about the town of Bluffton, they are digesting the content of the town of Bluffton, and they're excited about it. And so through the offline and the online touch points, we're really seeing that lift. And what goes back to that second or third slide about occupancy, people are coming, they're laying their head in a bed. And so all these pieces firing and working together makes the town of Bluffton top of mind and is easy recall. When we look at the distribution of the vacation planner, I just want to mention that not only are they in our offices, they're at the Hayward House, there are some with town, welcome centers, the airports, and then obviously if there's any calls or email inquiries or walk-ins, that those are fulfilled that way. In the future, we're looking to also work with all AAA offices.
Questions?
Just have one. I didn't understand on the page that had impressions, large numbers that went with it. Yeah, right there. Go back. What are those numbers?
So those numbers for the impressions are anyone that would have the opportunity to see that pickup.
Okay.
Right, and so so those impressions are all the eyeballs that would have had the opportunity to digest that information about the town of Bluffton.
Not clicks.
No,
Give me an example of one
so it
impression.
would be those that would be a circulation number. If something was produced in an editorial piece, it could have been something on a social media. If a influencer came in and they had written or posted about it, it could be that. So it's those impressions that are from a PR perspective not paid for, that you're garnering as a destination. And again, when you look at the value of those impressions, you equate that to $1, and that dollar amount is something that we look at and we say, okay, great, for what it would have cost us, $232,000 or $232 million, we would have had to pay for those impressions, which we didn't do. Those came organically through all the hard work that Charlie and her team does with promoting the town of Bluffton.
That's a forecast, right? I mean, in other words, the 605,020 is a guesstimate at best, right?
Well, sir, those are the ones that we put around the value of the media that was earned, correct?
Other
Thank you.
questions? I'm still confused over that, but it's another day to get it.
Also, if you look at any of the social media sites, they'll actually create that metric for you. So like if you had an image or circulation that was created, if you have a business page for it, it'll tell you like, this is how many impressions you got. So how many, people that may have looked at it, even if they didn't click on it, they, may have seen it, and it could have prompted them to go to another website or go somewhere to purchase a ticket or something.
So online or offline, so print, thank you, Councilman Fraser. So Brides Magazine picked up, and their editorial team chose to write a story about the town of Bluffton and all the great opportunities they have for someone who's looking to get married. They have accounted for their circulation number, right? The circulation of those that subscribe to the Brides Magazine. And so that circulation number is accounted for in terms of their publication in print, as well as if it was published, that article was published online, they'll take what they have in circulation on the website. So how many website views do they receive? So that number is accounted for there. And if that story was then lifted and taken to social, you'll take into account how many brides followers that social handle has. And again, if it was across several channels, you'll take that. So not truly, it's not a guesstimate or an average number. It is an accurate number based on the numbers that they have, that they report on. And so when you take that for brides or photos or Pure Wow, you can take that same formula, if you will. Again, but it's earned media, not paid media. So at that time, that's where Charlie's team comes in, and they're working very closely with these publications or writers, and they're pitching stories to them, saying, have you thought about the town of Bluffton for your upcoming wedding? Or have you thought about, I'm using wedding as the example because I see brides very big, but that is an example of the team and the work that she does with her team on the back end of making people aware 365 days of the town of Bluffton. And so when the story is picked up from a Brides Magazine, again, that's earned media, because there were no dollars exchanged for those efforts. But the number you see from impressions is accounted back to, again, where it was distributed within that publication. So print, social, digital, however it was emailed out, they take those numbers based on who they have as tracking in that, and that's how you get to that number. Does that help a little bit?
Very well.
Yeah.
No, that's not a world I'll ever be in, but it's interesting. Any other questions for Ariana? We do have a marketing committee with the town that meets with our DMO on a regular basis. So if there's ever anything y'all want talked about, make sure Stephen knows and he can get it.
Thank you
Very much.
I appreciate
And this
it.
is on our packet, so this is something we can have access to.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is public comment. Public comment is 3 minutes in length from the minute you stand up until you say thank you. It is, give us your name and address. Please remember that so I don't have to interrupt you and ask you. It is for Kim for minutes. Please just to be respectful. I guess that's the gist of it. Try to keep your concerns that could fall under our jurisdiction of what we can handle or take care of. We do not respond to a public comment. It is just a comment. And afterwards, if we want to communicate our thoughts afterwards, it'll be in the next item. So we have 3. Is that what we have, Kim? Kim Lawton. Anything y'all want to pass along for the record, you can give to Kim. So name and address, Mr. Lawton. Thank you.
Hello.
Good evening.
My name is Jim Lawton, and I reside at 52 Oyster Street. I would like to comment on the application by Pulte Home Company, LLC, to annex the 100-acre Traver parcel into the town limits, and the request for rezoning from rural residential May River community preservation under the Beaufort County's Development Code to residential general zoning district to allow 4 DUs per acre. The environmental impact of bringing 403 potential new homes versus 38 upon the May River watershed, particularly where this upland property is located, will overwhelm an already stressed out ecosystem. Within the 22,413 approved DUs, according to the comprehensive plan, and Bluffton's current population tipping past 31,000 residents, what we are desperately need is the polar opposite. Turn these 100 acres into green space. Bluffton has reached the 50% build out predicted in the comprehensive plan. Since the plan was published in 2014, Bluffton's population has doubled. The resulting traffic congestion, pressure on the school system, stormwater management, and adverse effects upon the unique ecology of our region. What do all these people do for recreation? The town has wonderful festivals that draw upon homegrown riches, seafood, local produce, art, and nature, and has made nominal gains establishing parks throughout the township, but not nearly enough. Aggressive development is consuming our natural resources. Once these DUs are awarded, there's no going back. No one would dispute the centerpiece of Bluffton's green space is the May River. Unfortunately, the hydrology within the 54 square miles of the township and concentration of the DUs and commercial properties and supporting infrastructures within it are upland of this precious resource. Everything flows to the May River. It would be like New York City draining everything from its streets and rooftops into Central Park. It doesn't take a climate scientist to know that all the stuff that flows into the waterway from impervious surfaces, trash, fecal bacteria, nitrogen, phosphorus, oil, and gas is extremely harmful to it. Bluffton Town Council and its partners in Beaufort County must redouble their efforts to protect the May River by setting aside critical lands before they're given away to developers. It doesn't matter whether this parcel is in the county or township. It must be set aside for the future.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jesse White.
Evening, Jesse White, Beaufort, South Carolina. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Coastal Conservation League. I'm also a member of the May River Watershed Action Plan Advisory Committee. I urge you to deny Pulte Homes' request to annex and upzone 100 acres along May River Road because it's inconsistent with the town's comprehensive plan and will exacerbate ongoing water quality concerns in the May River. The property is currently zoned May River Community Preservation, which allows just shy of 40 single-family units. By contrast, Pulte Homes seeks a nearly 1,000 increase in allowable density to approximately 400 single-family units. This is incompatible with the rural residential character of the immediate area, as well as its future land use designation. The Mrcp zoning is intended to promote low-intensity rural development patterns while encouraging and allowing more urban development to locate outside the district at either end of the corridor. It retains a much-needed yet quickly diminishing rural buffer to the town's more urban and suburban development. And as the name implies, the Mrcp flanks the headwaters of the May River and is intended to be protective of this critically important waterway. Bluffton's UDO does not contain a zoning category that would be similarly protective as the Mrcp. Even the town's agricultural zoning would allow a density of 1 unit per acre, so 100 homes. While better than the 400 sought, it's still far more impactful than what's currently allowed. The comprehensive plan and future land use map designate this property as low-intensity residential, intended to maintain existing rural character and decrease environmental and traffic impacts. Consistency with this land use designation is best achieved by allowing the property to remain in the county where it's appropriately zoned rural, low-intensity residential under the protective Mrcp. Notably, the annexation request relies on the Buckwalter PUD to establish continuity. The difference in density allowances between Buckwalter and Mrcp is extreme, and if allowed, would establish a dangerous precedent, opening up the surrounding Mrcp district to high-intensity residential development and undermining the decades of research, investment, and commitment toward improving the water quality of the May River and protecting it for future generations. This area is already under significant pressure from existing growth and development, resulting in closure of shellfish harvesting areas in the May. The science is clear. When the impervious surface of a watershed exceeds 10%, it results in measurable and devastating impacts to the physical, chemical, and biological health of the waterways and ecosystems. Water quality is a primary concern identified in the comprehensive plan, and those concerns only continue to grow. The May River is already under too much stress from the extent of surrounding development and impervious surface. We know increased impervious surfaces comes with increased stormwater runoff, increased fecal coliform bacteria, and diminished water quality. Opening up this property to allow more intense residential development will have devastating impacts on water quality and a domino effect on the surrounding land uses. Thank you
very much. Joe O'Rourke.
How are you guys? Joe O'Rourke, 84 9th Ave. Here to speak on consideration of an ordinance for amendment to the Town of Bluffton zoning map. All right, we'll start here. Decided to take time out of my schedule to submit a public comment on the questionable practices exacerbated by the Town of Bluffton dealing with restaurants and zoning. You guys are going to be voting on this tonight. First, there are processes set in place for a reason dealing with these issues of this kind. I believe a variance request would have sufficed. The change of a zoning map is completely unnecessary and overreach. Second, we are using taxpayers' dollars to hire an attorney for legal advice only to disregard said advice. The advice was given based on the South Carolina law. Based on what I read, it appears all supporting documents were submitted before the Town of Bluffton attorney concluded. This is from your own documents that you're going to read through later, quote unquote. On July 26, 2016, the attorney for the Town of Bluffton stated the use of a restaurant is not allowed as the property owner had abandoned the legal non-conforming use for a period of 1 year or more. There was no appeal made. Third, I asked the Town of Bluffton's Planning Commission, including Kevin Eichart, to review emails from my restaurant due diligence period that took place in 2016. Why was my situation different? And while I'm here, why is it still different? I'll leave you with this. Restaurants within 1 mile of this area for discussion have paid a premium to operate based on the town's zoning laws and regulations, supply and demand. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused these restaurants to struggle significantly. According to the Small Business Administration, more than 2.2 million were given to these establishments. That is 170% more than the state of South Carolina average. Town of Bluffton has done enough damage regarding restaurants and zoning. Now more than ever is not the time to be changing zoning maps or laws. Thank you. You guys have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment is over. Next is communications from mayor and council. Left side.
I just want to throw out again, we just came, and I said this last time, I think we came through the holidays, special period of time for the town of Bluffton and the citizens of Bluffton, and everybody here knows that we have the best public works group in America, because they make you feel good when you ride through the city limits of Bluffton. You feel like you're in Mayberry. They're like a pit crew at a racetrack. They're like a baseball groundskeeping group that comes out in between the game, 7-inning stretch or whatever, and you get an applause. And it takes creativity, not only hard work, but it takes a lot of thought to figure out where to put all those little bitty light bulbs. Must have been 1 million of them. So I applaud those guys over and over and over. They do a fantastic job. Thank you.
Ed, have anything?
Ditto, I agree. I think they're the hardest working bunch of people that you could ever want to keep your streets clean and do all the other things. They're out there all the time, and my hat's off to them. I wish they all could get a raise.
Well, it's budget year, so fall on us. Bridget, anything?
Yes, I would like to use just a little bit of time tonight to recognize Black Greek letter organizations who celebrate anniversaries this month, which is why I'm in pink tonight. I see some members of those organizations here tonight. We have the members of Kappa Alpha Psi who are celebrating 111 years of existence, Phi Beta Sigma, 108 years, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I see a few ladies here tonight, 109 years. In my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, 114 years, and Zeta Sigma Theta Sorority, 108 years as well. And I recognize them because we are celebrating Dr. King's birthday this upcoming Monday, and all of these organizations have committed themselves to serving their communities at large, and were integral in advancing civil rights for all people. So I just want to celebrate them and recognize them tonight. And also I see we have Michael Lewis, who's in the audience, if he would stand. He is the 2022 Bluffton MLK social justice advocate for his tireless efforts in registering voters and assisting people in the cause for equity and equality for all. I'm sure he probably has a voter registration application on him now. So if you need to switch your address or do any of that, he's definitely the man for it. But thank you, Mr. Lewis, for your service, and we look forward to honoring you this Friday at the ball. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
That's a bunch of strong women, and if you've ever had the opportunity to be at one of their conventions, it's life-changing. It's wonderful, and I always forget what Bridget is, but I'll know now because of the color she's wearing. This is also a time, I'm not going to put y'all on the spot, but I think it is something that we need to discuss, and it's our committees and our commissions. And we never really get an update from our council members who sit as a liaison on affordable housing, Don Ryan Center, LOCOG, Economic Development Corporation, and our watershed committee. So I've talked with Mr. Steeson, and if I'm missing some, we need to get it. We do need to discuss over the next month, are you happy where you are? Does someone want to, is there anyone that wants to change or move over or whatever? We've always been real complacent with it because you all seem to be very happy with your committee assignment. But I think this is a good time every month to maybe give a quick 10-second, 20-second update on anything. And if y'all have something tonight, I'm not putting you on the spot, chime in. But if not, I think we should do that and let the community know where we also sit and get information. And it'd be good for council to hear any news. So if y'all have something tonight, speak up. If not, we'll do it.
Yeah, maybe we do it next month. I mean, that would be better, so we could, you caught me a little off guard.
Of course I did.
do have concerns, but Yeah, that's fine.
So we'll plan that in February. And maybe there are key points that y'all talked about with, or your committees talked about that we
Right.
want, because we have such a good audience here that may not come to the committee meetings. So should have done it last month, but I forgot. So I'll remember that from now on. And Happy New Year to everyone. We've got a lot going on. We've been talking recently, especially Mr. Steese and I, really about how much we've grown. Jesse and Mr. Lawton, like you said, I mean, every year, it's not that we get totally new people, but we have people leaving and people replacing and new people coming, and there are just a lot of things that people don't understand. Development agreements, which we're going to get an update tonight on that. Litter, you name it. So there's a host of articles we're thinking about getting more publicized on, just trying to educate. If you're in the county, who's your rep? You know, they seem to call all of us, even in Sun City, and that's not in the town. So if there's anything y'all think on the street that you think we need to help educate, please get it to us, and we'll make sure we get something written about it just to get it out in the public. Got to keep educating our residents. So with that, we will move on to workshop agenda items. First is the presentation of the access. I didn't see you back there, Jared. Access Management Plan by Mr. Fralix, who is the PE Assistant Beaufort County Administrator and Engineering. Jared.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Town Council. I just told Eric, y'all are doing something right. We don't ever have anybody come to our council meetings and give us checks.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, Paul, y'all can come on up forward. That's perfect. Well, you're not going to get them. So
Also,
let
I wanted
them keep
to,
bringing it
I've
to
never
us.
held one of those big checks before, so I'm a little jealous. So, and I think do we have the slide?
And while he's up, Mr. Somerville, thank you for attending. Mr. Somerville's on the Beaufort County Council. Had Mr. Greenway, but he just
Look at
stepped
that.
out.
That easy. So, again, thank you very much for having me and for the opportunity to talk about our Buckwalter Access Management Plan. So, Buckwalter Access Management Plan, this is our goal with access management plans, as you can imagine, is to provide and be proactive rather reactive to make sure our roadways are available and have the capacity for existing needs and future accommodations. So, we actually have an existing Buckwalter Access Management Plan that was done in 2007, and over the course of last year we thought it was fitting. It's been 14 years. There's been a lot of development in the area. What things have changed, what things do we need to look at, maybe tweak, modify, and make sure that original plan, again, it's a plan, and plans are made to be guides and templates to make sure that's still intact. So that's the endeavor that we set out on last year. So this here is the limits of the original study, and we use the same exact limits for the update. So this is turned to the side, so north is to the left of your screen. That's 278 on the left, and it's running left and right. And so the right side termini is Bluffton Parkway. That's Buckwalter Place and Publix right there. So that's the northern section of Bluffton Parkway, not the southern section. Excuse me. And again, these are the exact limits from the 2007. So we're just replicating that and taking a look at what has changed and if anything needs to be modified or updated. So this is the existing plan. I know this is difficult to see, but I just wanted to express that to you. So what you see here in the yellow dash lines, those are, hey, it makes a lot of sense to have this interconnectivity such that it takes stress off of the main route. So as people are going into the developments, the interconnectivity between different parcels and properties such that they can get in and around, and then also make safe access to properly constructed intersections. So the red dashes kind of cross Bluffton Parkway, and I apologize, this one's turned.
Buckwalter Parkway.
Buckwalter Parkway. This is north and south, so 278 is at the top on this shot here. Those are the intersections. Some of the intersections are called out as signals, and this again is 2007. They're proposed signals, and then and we'll talk about some of the other signals. One thing in an access management plan, when you see a signal, It doesn't necessarily mean that a signal is going there right away. It just means that when a signal is warranted at that location, that would be the location. So as development occurs and the warrants are required based off the additional traffic or whatever the nature of the development is, then that would be programmed systematically where that signal would be located. So this one, again, has a proposed signal there at the northern entrance of Pinellas, which is at the Sea Turtle Cinemas, and then also at Ludlow Street, so at the what we now know as Washington Square development.
And I think, I know you said it, but just to reiterate, this is an aerial of 20 years ago or whatever. This
Yeah,
is
2007,
not current.
so not
help
current.
us kind of where you are.
That's right. And then in our update, you'll see the current, what we're proposing. So this is just continuing down to the termini, and it starts there at Ludlow. It has the proposed signal at Innovation Drive going into the Buckwalter Place. So Buckwalter Place wasn't even developed, as well as Bluffton Parkway Phase 4. It wasn't even constructed at this time. So you can see the different proposed signals there along the way. So as part of that was done in 2007. In 2010, we adopted this as part of our community development code, so it's in our ordinance, and this gets into the existing versus the planned. But what we're looking for in a corridor as this is a 2,000-foot spacing. That's optimal based off the speed and the amount of traffic. That's where we're trying to aim. Sometimes we can't quite get there, so 1,600 to 1,800 feet spacing is our sweet spot. So what that gives us is that ensures that we've got, I'm sure you've been in traffic before where you've never hit a red light, you just kind of platooned in traffic like ding, 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 right down the road. Sometimes you probably hit it where you like, I hit every single traffic light. So the goal is to get them spaced where you can just go straight down the road as such. So this is the existing signal versus the proposed signal, and it's a little hard to read, but rather than read them off the screen, I'll kind of go through that aerial so you can see it. So this is what we would call the proposed improvements, and we've coordinated with Heather and the town staff and also our consulting engineer to help take a look at what we have. We took a look at all the existing development, all the proposed known development that's out there, and future development that could occur in undeveloped spaces. And again, the same yellow dash line as represented in the original plan. So these are future access roads. These are just schematics. This is not exactly how they'll lay out, but just something to recognize that, hey, this traffic should, or this development should get back to this access point. Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
On that, I just want to make sure we know that too. I know we believe in interconnectivity from your old map, but is staff talked to you about, this is
Yes, we're coordinating anything we can do. So some of the, and this gets back to county versus town. So obviously the road is all a county-owned facility, but up and down the corridor is town parcels. But however, behind it, basically the front of the road is town for the most part. But behind it, there's a lot of county-owned. So it's a coordination of such between the planning departments as developments and permits are applied for. So
I just want to make sure we also believe in this as well, which I do, the connectivity. Okay.
Go ahead, Heather.
Yes, overall we do. We haven't looked at it in close detail. We're not traffic engineers, but wanted to get input from council tonight, which is why the workshop. And we have communicated, we've talked about, again, that anticipated development, and what we know is either has had pre-applications or a development plan so that the county is aware of where those needs are.
So in this one, what you'll recognize is initially the first signal in the 2007 format would be at that northern entrance or the far right entrance of Pinellas Drive. We've shifted that because that was about 3,000 feet from the existing 278. So in this arrangement, it's about 2,000 feet. So it's a little bit closer, but what it does do, it ensures we don't want to have a signal too close to 278 and make that intersection where it underperforms or they kind of run into each other with a queuing. So as you can also see there, as referenced, the future Willow development, Willow Run tract. So there would be the first Cassidy Drive. That would be, right now it's an open intersection, but that would be converted to a right in, right out. So you'd have a median across there, and that traffic would all be routed to this first intersection, which is the northern drive at Pinellas Drive. And again, the existing signal location at the southern drive of Pinellas to the right would be converted to a right in, right out. And right in, right out is just what it sounds like. So you don't have availability to take a left. So there would be a median at those locations where there's a right in, right out.
R-I-R-O.
R-I-R-O. We get really wild in the traffic world with our abbreviations. Also, probably better reflected on this previous slide is just to the very end on the slide up to the far right. So this is at Parkside Drive, so the entrance to Woodbridge, and also one of the entrances to Washington Park Development, Washington Square. So in the 2007 version, it is actually reflected where the first RIRO is right there on Ludlow. But based off, again, off development and the capability of development. So we looked at trying to get the Woodbridge community and how they would access Buckwalter. It would be cutting through that. You can see that wetland right there behind, north of the RIRO. So, and again, trying to space our signal such that we get to that premium 2,000 foot alignment. So this signal got adjusted from that location to the Parkside entrance there. And again, we're not adding signals. We're basically modifying this plan to adjust it to what development has taken place and to also gain back some of our spacing. Further down, so the next signal is to the Kroger fuel station. So in the previous 2007, it was at the next RIO, which is at Innovation Drive. That's where it was called out in 2007. And again, as we shift the one to the north, starting at Pinellas, when we shift that one to the north, it created more opportunity to shift the Ludlow to the north to Parkside, which gave more opportunity to shift Innovation to the north to this Kroger fuel station. I didn't reflect this on the 2007, but again, Buckwalter Place had not been constructed at that time, nor was it called out that there was a signal to be planned at the Lord of the Life Lutheran Church or the entrance there in the Publix. Again, the reason to go back and update a plan is things happen, it got developed, there is a signal there. So in the old iteration at Innovation Drive, we were less than 1,000 feet. So again, we're trying to get to 2,000, 1,600 to 1,800 is optimum. So by moving it and shifting it in between the two developments, the Washington Square development and the Buckwalter Place development, it helps us recapture some of that spacing requirement. And then lastly is Buckwalter, or the intersection of Buckwalter and Bluffton Parkway. So this one, we're not showing any change. This is the existing termini. It too is at 1,000 feet approximately, but based off the plan, that's where the termini was for this study. In the future, we would use that same spacing requirement, 2,000 feet, as we go all the way down Buckwalter Parkway. But for the purpose to match up the last plan with this plan, we reflected it and just stopped here at the intersection. So just to show you that with numbers, so you can see the scenario 1, the 2007 version. You can see the difference. We got some 3,000 all the way down to 1,000 and 1,000 there at the end, and then we're much more even across the board in the scenario 2 in this update. So we're pretty close to 2,000, 1,800, 1,500, so pretty close to that 1,600, 1,800 square distance spacing. So that's where we are. Just from a county standpoint, again, this is going to take Bluffton to adopt or approve, as well as the county. We're working it currently through our county council and our procedure. We've already addressed our council with a similar presentation, and they were receptive of it, and we're moving it through council. It's actually been read twice, as far as we've got to update the ordinance from the 2010 Community Development Code to reflect this change. So we have had, as of yesterday, we had our second reading. So we would have a third reading and public hearing to follow But we'll gladly take any comments or any suggestions, and if we need to tweak anything between where we are currently at second reading before we move to third reading, we definitely can do so.
Thoughts, suggestions, edits? Fred, I'll let Fred go since he shook his hand first.
Yes, sir. A lot of proposed, pre-planned. What's actual? What's prioritized in these concepts?
Well, so none of these signals are, this is just a plan. We're not implementing any of these signals. Those signals will be implemented as development comes, and whether their development actually calls for and warrants a signal, that's when it would be placed. But, so this is just setting the conditions for the locations, basically.
Okay, but since 2007, there's been so much growth that warrants a lot of these to be activated now. So I'll show how we get there.
We don't have any current warrants that are known. There's some that the closest one that is known. There's a development taking place and under permit right now for one at Parkside. So they have submitted. I guess to answer your question, that is the Woodbridge.
Because we have a Parkside community. I don't want to get
Sorry,
Parkside
excuse me.
thinking they're getting rid
Yeah,
of
so
it.
the Woodbridge community at that entrance, that to answer your question, there is a development that is submitted on that one, and I'm not aware of any other specifics that are driving a warrant analysis right now.
No, and if I could, just to help for a moment. So what we do when we review plans, and the Planning Commission reviews plans and development plans, one of the review criteria that they use is how it meets the access management plan, because that is an appendix to our comprehensive plan. So if that development is proposed and the traffic studies warrant a signal, or however that traffic patterns worked, we compare it to the approved access management plan. And like Jared said, as things have changed and as there's been some outliers where a signal did need to be constructed, although it wasn't in the access management plan, the county, and don't mean to speak for the county, felt it was appropriate to go ahead and relook at that plan and take another look. So the next steps for council would be to, after it's approved and we've provided comments back to the county, and after third reading, we would take that to you for adoption through resolution. So that would be something for your consideration in subsequent meetings.
The Willow Run track, where are we with plans for everything there, really? Can you help us out what the county is doing in the Willow Run community properties?
I can help with that. We're not, the county council is not doing anything with regards to that side of Bluffton Parkway interchange with the Willow Run track and things like that. If you all as town council want to go through the process with your staff to get that worked out with the people that live in the area, then we would be glad to discuss that with the town of Bluffton about moving that forward. But our county council is not doing anything else with that particular issue on that side of Buckwalter at this point.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, Eric. And one thing we've asked the town manager, we would like to put a working committee together with the county to cover all kinds of aspects of everything holistic going forward regarding transportation, roadways, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously you are the experts on that topic, not us. And by the way, I wonder, do you really read all those reports, Jared? I mean, my God.
Yeah, I bet he does.
It's
yes.
insane.
I would say yes.
But, you know, so some of the questions I have, and one of the reasons we wanted to put this working group together, and it takes time to better educate us, to help us plan better for the future. And some of the items that are in the plan tonight, for example, those interconnectivity roads, streets, there's topics to be had about funding, who builds what, who owns what. You know, the town has nothing in place to ever even consider anything like that. Right. These are long-term discussions that we have to begin soon. Maintenance, all kinds of stuff. And back to Mr. Hamilton's question, you showed 3 roadways into Willow Run coming off the Parkway up at the north end up there. And we had a prior discussion that y'all presented to us before, trying to solve some of the congestion problems on the Parkway on the southern end down there. And you came up with 5 scenarios, and they were good. They were all good. And I've never forgot one of the comments that you made, Jared, was if we do nothing, we'll have massive congestion. I think was your exact words, massive congestion. And so anyway, I'm looking forward to the dialogue to figure all these things out. It's going to be a long-term process. But back to the 3 roads into Willow Run, I would still ask the question again, there's got to be some benefit to do something to the south end of Willow Run coming out, because all 3 of those roads are near 278 and tying in to that portion of the Parkway. Nobody's getting to come out the back end of Willow Run. And I know there's political ramifications in all of this, but I think it's a discussion that this council still warrants conversation on in the future.
Yeah, we're happy to have that conversation with the town. The one thing that I'm not, comfortable doing as county administrator is putting the county council and county staff in a position of having to defend any action on that end of Willow Run to that track. So if the town wants to join us, if that's important to you all, and you all want to join with us and face the public outcry that's likely to ensue whenever we start those discussions, then by all means, let's do it together as a united front and try to explain it and see if we can work through the issue. So yeah, I'm all about that, but I'm just not going to put our county council and county staff in that position to fight that battle without some input and folks from the town of Bluffton standing there with us
And
and
I
being a
respect
voice.
that.
So,
And again, these other streets, they're going to be battles, all of them, at some point,
Right.
somewhere, getting easements and everything else. So again, that's why we need to start the dialogue jointly together with county, town, and mix it up, and we'll go forward.
And let's just, the workshop tonight is the access management plan on a portion of Buckwalter Parkway. So I think what you want from us are red light road locations, right in, right outs. We can't really talk about closing off roads yet, because I think that comes when, how do we make the outback, that area, close off a road when there's no other way to get out until there's development on 278's parcel where you have that connector road kind of behind that
That's
car
correct.
place. So the dotted lines, I think, are things we all got to buy into, that if a development comes to us, they need to know, like we have been with the north-south connector, that's a must. It's a must. It just can't go through a plan we've already approved. I think we've got to put what our plans are on this map and figure out how that road can get north to south off of Buckwalter.
And also the dotted lines, they're not new.
Yeah,
So-
they're just different color. I went and I doubled.
So the dotted yellow here from 2007 is reflecting a similar connectivity. And what that does from a zoning standpoint and a planning and development is, whether it's a county or whether it's a town-owned or a jurisdiction, is when that development comes, they have to say, hey, we have a plan that shows connectivity. So when they're developing their plan, they have to ensure that they provide that connectivity in adherence to the adopted plans that both whoever council has whatever jurisdiction they're submitted
So
to.
when this is, and I want to get, then we'll have questions after them, but when this is done, we're going to have an updated actual aerial, take away, I don't know who came up with bright yellow and green in 2007, but it's horrid. It's more realistic. But I was going to ask you that. You haven't removed any of the dotted lines. You just kind of changed the format and the font. And
Yeah, they're just somebody else doodled on the map versus whoever it was
your
previous
style
in
better.
2007, a different engineer.
Questions or comments on anything you'd like to see changed or taken back to county council on this, on the Buckwalter?
Basically, what I'm saying is this is just going to be a guideline, and 6 months down the road or 6 years down the road, we may say this isn't going to work either, and everything's got to be moved again, correct? So
Yeah, I mean, it is a guideline, so it's not, the law is not in stone or anything like that. So just as Heather mentioned, at some point before, another intersection was installed that everybody agreed upon in some fashion. So This is just direction, so we can, when somebody submits, we can say, hey, this is what's in our plan that we subscribe to.
It took 14 years to change this one.
We're growing a little faster now.
I know. My only thought to Summit, I see where you're closing off roads on some of them, and I think that was on one of the slides on where you had the Future Willow Run. I can't see attachment on it, but you have a big circle where Pinellas is, and you say remove existing driveway. And then on the other side, you have representation. I just don't want that to move forward, that if that red light is going to happen, but there's who's going to pay to make a new drive. I don't want that to fall on a business that built with the current standards. I guess it's not.
Yeah, and that one, you're probably spot on right there, that specific intersection more than the other intersections. So the existing plan had it at the southern Pinellas. And as we adjusted and made sense of the other locations and we moved this one to the north, it's one thing getting a new development to subscribe and build to the existing plan, but having an existing development to build to a new plan or an updated plan is a different story. So that would be one of those areas, as you guys just described, that we'd have to have some type of arrangements beyond this to how do we facilitate that if there's a development across the street that's requiring the signal, well, that's great for that side of the street, but the other side of the street has to have some type of accommodations, and how do we collectively meet that requirement? So
That my only really thought on it is putting a notation there, because you might not be here, we might not be here, and all of a sudden there's a light, and Berkeley Place is told to build a road that's different from what they already have, and they built according to what our 7 plan showed. So that would be a comment from me. And when, if nothing else on this, when do we look at southern, south of Bluffton Parkway on Buckwalter? Do we ever do that access management plan?
The only thing that we don't have a specific plan. That would be a brand new plan. What we do have is in our community development code, which I believe is referenced in this slide up here. This actually outlines the intersections for the entire Bluffton Parkway, but it didn't go into the plan level. So we had a plan and we incorporated that into our community development code. So the code didn't do the plan. So we don't have a existing plan to this level of detail on the southern side. That would be an action item that we as the county would like to take up at a future time, but we haven't done that yet.
That could be a discussion with your southern part of Willow Run discussion. I was kind of setting that.
Educate me a little bit on financial responsibility when we do build these roads or lights. Who does that fall under at the time? Because it appears that the county is not going to pay for it, right?
Well, so with good planning and it's development driven, it would be on the onus of the developer. If it's something driven by a different mechanism, one source that we have right now, it's not listed in our current impact fees, but in future impact fees, we have intersections prescribed in there. In that scenario, it may be an impact fee credit. So those are the two easiest readily available mechanisms that we have. But again, a plan allows you the opportunity that if it's a developer-driven, the need and the warrant for the signal, then they're subscribed to, or they're responsible for that pressure that they place onto the system. Other mechanisms are different types of sales tax or other road programs.
Yeah, in some particular cases, whenever we have stuff in the impact fee to add capacity projects, in this particular case, in the new impact fee update for transportation standpoint, we have signalization money in there. So underneath this scenario, if someone came in and they said, well, the access management plan requires a signal here, we're willing to go ahead and fund that signal, and they did that out of their development pocket, then they would be eligible for a transportation impact fee credit because they went ahead and advanced those improvements in accordance with the impact fee study. So they would get a transportation credit, which would reduce their development costs up front as what they would have to pay for impact fees.
Thank you.
We are actually kind of working through that now, I think, with
That's right, we
the,
are.
that interconnectivity on the western side, hopefully to get the theater connected to Washington Square, connected to Buckwalter Place. And I think that's a good project to show other developments, okay, it can be done. We weren't just throwing things at the wall. And that, I think that right there, as long as we stay within our permit guidelines, we'll really see some traffic.
Parallel roads to roads that carry traffic, parallel roads that are designed to access commercial properties are really beneficial to maintaining the capacity of the main corridor and the main thoroughfare.
Any other thoughts, any other questions? Do you have our comments? It's not many, but I'm confused why we only did part of the Parkway, but you weren't here and neither was I.
I wish I knew as well, and unfortunately, but definitely have that as a comment for action item as well.
The rest of it's building faster than the part we're looking at. But.
Well, thank you for your time and appreciate all your consideration.
Thank you. Next we have, Eric, you're up too. And Dr. Rodriguez is here. We're doing a presentation of the proposed Beaufort County impact fees for schools. And we kept asking questions, and what better way than to get you both here, and we don't have to have telephone tag, and answers are different than what, or questions are different than what we thought they were going to be. So y'all have it.
First of all, let me wish everyone a happy new year. It's good to see you all again. Thank you all for the invite tonight. I was up earlier, didn't do that, but congratulations, Mr. Toomer, Mr. Hamilton, for your swearing in and re-election this evening. I'm going to let Dr. Rodriguez do most of the talking this evening, since this is pretty much, he's the expert on the growth in the school area here. We need to wrap up the IGAs on the impact fees, particularly as it pertains to school. I would like to say one thing while I'm here for the record, just so it's clear, because you all had another item that was talked about earlier in the public comment session. Annexation of properties whenever there's an impact fee pending on those properties in an unincorporated area of the county is not a way to bypass an impact fee. So if an impact fee is in place at the time the property is annexed, that impact fee still has to be paid. So there is a school impact fee in southern unincorporated Beaufort County. So if Pulte Homes annexes into town of Bluffton, we will expect the town to collect and work with us to collect the $9,500 per residential unit that gets built there for each single-family dwelling, and $4,500 for each multifamily unit that might be built there. So just want to make sure that's clear for the record, and so that Pulte can't come back later and say, oh, this was a surprise to us, because they're trying to do that on a couple of other projects that we have impact fees on as well. So thank you all. Dr. Rodney.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for having me and my team here. I have with me today Ms. Tanya Crosby, who is our Chief Financial Officer, and I also have Mr. Robert Otting, who is our Chief Operations Officer, and then Ms. Carol Crutchfield, who is in our operations team as well, and then also Dr. Guadz is here from the school board as well. And so I just wanted to, first of all, tell you thank you for having us. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share information with you. I agree with you, Mr. Wood. The streets are beautiful in Bluffton when the banners are up and when the lights are on. My favorite time is when the banners go up that say Bluffton High School graduates and May River High School graduates. And so,
my favorite time too.
So thank you again for having us. The conversation around impact fees and school impact fees, I believe that conversation started way back in probably 2017, but with respect to what we're seeing in the way of growth in Bluffton and in our schools has been over the past 10 years anywhere between 300 to 400 students per year in the Bluffton schools. And COVID last year put a pause on that, but this year we're back to 300 to 400 again, right? And so that growth is picked up right back where it was prior to COVID. So that's the reality within our Bluffton schools. I'd like to invite Mr. Otting to join us up here at this time, and he wants to share some information with respect to growth in particular schools, as well as information around the impact fees. Mr. Otting.
Thank you. Thank you all for having us. First, I'd just like to say, I'm going to address two items. I'm going to talk about projections and projects that are within the study that was done for the impact fees. And I would like to say thank you for providing us some of the questions ahead of time. It gave us some guidance on what you're looking for. So when you first start to address projections, what I would like to say is we'll be presenting tomorrow night to the Operations Committee of the Board the Facilities Master Plan. What will be in that will be our projections, demographics, and growth for the upcoming year. And that'll be for the entire district. So I'm going to give a little preview of that, but I'm not going to give the whole report out to you. That'll be followed up by the board meeting on the 18th, where we'll go into more depth on that report. So as Dr. Rodriguez said, we're back to growth in Bluffton. And we did have that 1 year setback, but things appear to be getting back to normal. What is normal? Well, normal for us was we've been behind. We've been behind in Bluffton. We were behind, frankly, prior to the pandemic. For the 2021 school year, when you start talking about our buildings and what state we're in, when we say building capacity, we'd say we were at 85%. Programmatic capacity, we're at 104% for all of the Bluffton schools. That's elementary, middle, and high. So I'm going to get a little bit in the weeds there on what those two words mean. When I say building capacity, what that means is what the buildings were designed for, how they were made from the architects to fit, and programmatic capacity is how we use the buildings. Simple example of where that matters is, so if we had 12 students in a classroom that's for 22 students, we'd say we're at 54% building capacity. But when I tell you those 12 students are special needs students and the maximum amount you can have in that classroom is 12, then we're at 100% programmatic capacity. And that's where that differs. We've been moving more towards programmatic capacity because that gives a better reflection of what we're seeing in our buildings and what we're able to do in them. So just to say, let you know some of the buildings where we're having issues today. I'll say Pritchardville Elementary School right now is at 127% building capacity. We're at 163% programmatic capacity. Bluffton High School, 92% building, 120% programmatic. May River High School, which just had an addition put on it, as you probably are all well aware, is at 91% building capacity and 106% programmatic. So for the most part, May River High School is already full today. And that's where we are right now. So what we've been doing to address this is with mobiles. And you'll see mobiles right now are at Bluffton High School, H.E. McCracken, Pritchardville Elementary School, River Ridge Academy, and May River. We're actually going to, after the wing addition at River Ridge Academy, be able to remove those mobiles because that new addition is going to be able to provide capacity for that building for the upcoming years. But we do see that we're going to need to add mobiles in the upcoming years at May River High School, Pritchardville Elementary School, and H.E. McCracken Middle School, and maybe even Bluffton High School. So what's the problem? So the problem is, as Dr. Rodriguez said, we've been growing at 300 to 400 students a year in Bluffton, and that's been going on for the last 10 years. That basically is a elementary school size every 2 years, a middle school every 3 years, or a high school every 4 years. We wouldn't do all those at once, obviously, but when you're looking at the averages, those are the kind of numbers we're talking about. And COVID did impact us, and we saw that overall drop in students, but it was primarily at the elementary school level. Middle schools stayed pretty flat, and our high schools actually grew. Now, that's been a similar situation to what they've been seeing across the country. That's kind of been the national reaction to the COVID pandemic. So now that we've returned to that 300 to 400 student range, we're going to move very quickly to having full schools again. Quite honestly, what COVID did is brought us a little bit of a break from the growth that we've seen, and now we need to take that advantage of that time and plan for the future. One of the questions that was presented was, what is the timeline for decrease in growth?
I've been with the school district for 10 years, and for the last 10 years, I'd say I've been fighting the argument that Bluffton's not growing. Bluffton is growing, and we're continuing to see it grow. And I'd have to say, as far as if we're asked when would we see the decline in growth, I'd say a better measure of that is the town of Bluffton and the building permits that you're putting out. When you start to see specifically your residential permits go into a trend of decline, a few years later, we're going to see that in the school district. So as long as you're experiencing growth, you can pretty much count we're experiencing growth. So the projects. Well, so before I go on to projects, so just let me make one statement. So at this point, we have no indication that growth is anticipated to slow or even decrease in the Bluffton area. So as far as projects, one of the things when the impact fee study was developed by Tischler Bice, it was developed the same time we were working on our referendum back in 2019. For that referendum, we had a committee developed to study our needs. They were the Community Project Review Committee. And that information that we presented and went to the Community Project Review Committee went straight to Tischler Bice that was reviewing the impact fees at the same time. So I'd like to just read real quick a description that we have on our website of the Community Project Review Committee. So they were a group of 40 members nominated by schools, school SIC groups, board members, and district staff. They were from all parts of the county. They worked more than 900 hours between January 2019 and April 2019. We called them the CPRC. They visited 26 schools in Beaufort and other districts and received presentations from outside experts before producing the district-wide project list. The CPRC members received presentations from safety security consulting firms, a demographer, 4 architectural consultants, the town of Bluffton, a playground equipment vendor, a furniture vendor, and district staff. Afterwards, the CPRC identified $629 million in district-wide facility needs, and then, along with the superintendent at the time, Herbert Berg, the board decided to cut that into 2 phases, and the phase 1 referendum went forward for $344 million in projects. So as we were developing that list, Tischler Bice used that list, and they created a list that addressed the growth issues in southern Beaufort County, so primarily in Bluffton. Their project list came to $160 million in 10 years. So since that time that project list was developed, the referendum, of course, passed, and we've already begun projects. River Ridge Academy Edition, May River High School Edition, those have all been completed, and also so has some of the mobile units that were in that project list in the original impact fee study. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tanya Crosby, the district CFO, who's going to speak on just the capital projects and how impact fees work.
Questions of the, like 1 second, just break it up into segments. We got a really long council meeting, so I want to make sure this is information we get. Are there questions on anything right now? Yes, sir.
Can you told me that you had a study group that came up with these scenarios of why Bluffton needs, I guess, to be the good child in this effort, right?
So repeat that again, I'm sorry.
You said that the study group gave you pretty much the statistic or scenarios why Bluffton should be the good child in helping with the, I guess, the financial burden of increasing the space for schools. Is that correct?
I believe what you're referring to is the impact study and who's going to pay the impact fees. Is that? And correct. I think Ms. Crosby is going to speak to that in just a second. So okay. I'm more on the projections of growth in the projects.
Well, but it was your presentation that I got that concept from. So I'm trying to figure out how do we get to that study group you said part of Bluffton participated.
Community Project Review Committee?
Right. So Bluffton agreed that we are the cause for the schools to be impacted or overcrowded, and in next 10 years, you think that Bluffton also should be responsible for helping build these schools, right?
I wouldn't say the cause. All I am stating is that the growth in Bluffton, we see a direct correlation with the growth that occurs in Bluffton in our Bluffton schools.
Right.
So as the town grows, our schools grow. We experience that same thing. And we need some means in place to address that by providing additional capacity in schools to handle that growth.
Okay, I'll come back later. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
I'm going to just throw out a thought, and I don't know who can do it. I actually had Heather set up a presentation for me because I'm starting to go out to groups and talk, and one was actually on building permits. And I know it only goes back to 2010. Somewhere between 2010 and today, pre-Dr. Rodriguez, we had that 8% money we spent and built, and then we had a referendum from that group, I think. I think that group was set up to look at security, and so that money from that last referendum, which y'all did on time, under budget, hallelujah, awesome to do that. But I guess my question and thought for you with all this and my confusion is, and I know you'll help us with this, but for 10 years, have you really sat down with staff? I look at our building permits, they peaked in 17, but take COVID away because everyone and their brother are moving here right now. That's going to end. We actually did start declining. I mean, we declined by 150 building permits between 18 and 19, declined again in 20. 21's crazy. I think 21 should just move over into a subset of its own, but it is going to see some young people. So I'm really, in 10 years, are we going to see that decline go down, down, down further? Have you sat with Heather and her staff on, yeah, this Alston Park, I mean, you ride through there, you see 2-story houses, you know those are families, but then we have Four Seasons at New Riverside. Well, it's age restricted, and maybe that's 100 permits from there. I just want us to be communicating and make sense of something that is a huge detriment to affordable housing.
Yes,
huge.
sir. Yes, ma'am.
And it's going to fall on the county or us to pay that impact fee. So that is huge. So that's my trouble thinking through all this. And I'm just throwing it at you. You don't have to answer, but I wanted the group to hear kind of my thoughts and what I see on graphs that we have. So
if I can just say, Carol Crutchfield is, of course, our planner, and I know Heather, we speak all the time on what we're seeing, what the town is seeing. So like I mentioned, that Community Project Review Committee, their task was to look at all the projects and come up with a list of what they thought was needed for the district. And that's exactly why we had the town of Bluffton at that time, which Heather actually did come and present to them on what the town of Bluffton was seeing, so that they would make sure that we were aligned. And yes, we do that all the time, and it is extremely important. Now, one of the things we track is we only track growth of students. So it doesn't always correlate. You may have some areas that are having growth that aren't producing students. But quite honest, that's maybe what Heather would track more. We only pay attention to students' butts in the classroom. I mean, that's what we're looking at.
But I'm only saying that because you just told Fred we need to track it ourselves, and we've been tracking it, and our building permits are declining.
Well,
so it's kind of, then we shouldn't track building permits because our building permits are declining, but your students are going up. I think we all got to figure out where they're going up.
What I'm saying is a trend in decline. When you start to see a constant line down.
Okay, well, it's been going down since 17. Constant down. Anyway, but I don't have the county numbers, and I don't have Malin Bluff. We don't have those things.
Yeah, y'all do have the numbers. It's in the impact fee study that we provided to the staff. And the consultant took the growth trends into consideration and extrapolated out what those would do for the next 10 years. And all of that's in the school impact fee study report. So it's all there. It's all based on a statistical modeling of what the trends were and for the south of the Broad service area and it's all in the impact fee study. The numbers are there, and they're accurate. They are the consultant that did the study, Tisher Bice. They're known around the United States as the experts in impact fees. They did it correctly. If the numbers are there and they're saying what the number needs to be, then you all as a city council can be reasonably assured, more than reasonably assured in my opinion, that the growth projections are accurate and the impact fee that they are saying that is supported by those numbers is spot on and accurate as well. That's why we paid the consultants to do that. So,
Eric, let's not say that we're disagreeing with your studies because
no, I know that. I just want to make sure that you all understand that the numbers were there. They looked at the numbers, and all of that trending information is in the study. That's all I'm telling you. I'm not saying you're disagreeing with me.
Okay.
So,
because I don't think that's where we are. But
Yeah, right.
but what I am concerned about is that we are not just a Southern Beaufort County school. We are Beaufort County schools. We don't have two different divisions of counties. It's one county. So no matter where the schools are built, the whole county should be responsible for it. That's what I am saying.
Well, so let me talk a little bit about impact fees in order for them to be legal. They have to be based on a service area. Not all service areas are equal. In this particular case, a decision was made that there would be a north of the broad service area and a south of the broad service area. We did a school impact fee study for the entire county. The results of that study was that growth in the northern service area was not sufficient enough to warrant the need for a school impact fee. Growth south of the broad service area was sufficient enough to warrant the need for a school impact fee. And that's why the county council adopted it for the unincorporated areas and is trying to work with the municipalities in the south of the broad area to get you all to enter into the IGAs so that we can collect it in a unified approach. Now, with regards to the affordable housing, I get that. Our council and you all and I am very committed to making sure that whatever we do does not have a detriment to affordable housing. And we're going to continue to do what we need to do, in my opinion, as long as I'm county administrator, to provide affordable housing opportunities and so that people do not are able to teach here, be nurses here, be police officers here, be firemen here, but also be able to live here. And we're committed to work with you all as a municipality to do whatever we need to do with impact fee waivers on affordable housing from a county standpoint. We'll continue to do that. But we hear all the time about making growth pay for itself. When people are coming in, an impact fee is a great way to help new growth pay for the infrastructure needs that are brought onto that. Because your only other option is to spread that out across all of your citizens and make bonds be put on the table for everybody that lives here, whether they're buying a new house or not, whether they have kids in the school or not, and they have to pay that money back through their ad valorem property taxes every year to the school district. So impact fees are a way to slow the need for bonding for capacity projects, because you have the impact fees that is paid by new growth that creates the need for those capacity projects in a school system. So anyway.
Can Tanya do a presentation? Y'all know we have a very long agenda. Okay. Dan, can you let Tanya give her presentation?
Sure.
Do you have a question? Okay.
Great, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. Actually, Mr. Greenway hit on many of the topics that are in the few questions that I was going to respond to. But I do want to make one point. He mentioned that the northern service area did not present an ability or a calculation that an impact fee would be applicable, and that's because it did not represent that there would be a need for additional seats in schools. We do have needs for renovations of those schools, but we do not need additional seats, additional classrooms, because there is space available for students there. But in Bluffton, the difference is that we do need additional classrooms, expansions of buildings, new buildings, and that it provides, there is a requirement for nexus in the impact fee calculations and the study, and the nexus is the need for growth, the need for additional classrooms. And so impact fees cannot be used to renovate existing schools. They must be used to build new or expand schools to add those seats for additional students. So that's the difference between the northern side and the southern side. So I wanted to add that. So first of all, when we received these questions a few days ago, I loved to be able to see the information. I'm certainly no expert in this area. I have been with the school district for 20 years, graduate of the Beaufort County Schools, but I've been in my role for about 5 years, and this is the first time we've dealt with impact fees. So I have a team, an army, it's almost an army of people around me to help advise me, and that's what I've been doing the last few days, contacting Carson Bice of Tischler Bice. I talked to him just today, our financial advisor, our bond counsel, and my counterparts across the state who have impact fees in their school districts. And so I've been learning through the process, as you're learning about the impact fees as well. And my expertise is in finance. So, I don't have all the answers, but I gathered that information, and that's what I'm going to help you and help provide to you today. So one of the first questions was, what other options exist other than impact fees for financing of construction of schools? So no state funding is provided to schools for the construction of schools. We do not receive state revenues. The first primary avenue is voter-approved referendum, and generally these are used for the construction of schools and major renovations, so very large projects. These are typically long-term bonds over about 20 years, 20 or plus years. The other avenue is through the 8% funding. 8% is an avenue that limits by state law, limits the school district's borrowing, excluding voter-approved referendum, to the 8% of the county-wide assessed value. So it does not include outstanding bonds on referendum bonds, but it does include all outstanding bonds outside of those voter-approved. So both involve general obligation bonds. The difference is 8% bonds are typically used for shorter-term projects. There are some exceptions to that, and May River High School original construction is one of those exceptions. But we do have annual projects of about $20 to $25 million that we use 8% bonds for, and those are typically HVAC replacements, roofs, painting school-wide, major improvements to schools, and so on. So that is the extent of our options for school construction and financing. Both of those affect property taxes. They can affect property taxes, and they make up the debt service millage that is imposed on our tax bills. So impact fee, are all municipalities required to adopt the fees? So there are 3 municipalities involved in this study. The town of Hardyville, town of Hilton Head, and town of Bluffton. And based on the comments I received from Mr. Bice, excuse me, all of the municipalities are not required to adopt the fees. If any one of the municipalities does not adopt the fees, the need for the projects do not change, and the calculations of the fees do not change. So the need is still there. The calculation is based on the growth in the areas that exist. We simply collect less money, and then the school district reprioritizes projects based on the available funding that we have, and the other available funds would be through referendum or 8% funds. So those, Bluffton is the greatest share of the revenues and the growth in this study. And so without Bluffton's support, we would have less of an ability to offset any future borrowings. So there would potentially be less of an ability to lower or to offset any increases that might be in the millage or property taxes for those future projects. There was a great question, and I think this will be a favorable answer for you. Could a shorter plan be looked at and then reevaluated based on growth or changes during the time frame, say 5 years? We mentioned earlier that this is a 10-year projection. It's a 10-year projection for the growth. It's a 10-year projection for additional school capacity. But pursuant to state law, the impact fee study is required to be updated at least once every 5 years. So this study must be done again, must be prepared again within 5 years. And I checked with Mr. Bice, and he believes it's 5 years, at least from the date of the final approval of the ordinance. So that was just June 28th. Of 2021. So it will have to be considered, and at that time, the calculations would be done again, growth would be considered and looked at again, and the capital improvement plan would be considered again for the projects in the service areas. We do annual updates to our capital improvement plan, and it is a 10-year plan every year. I believe Mr. Otting mentioned it, that it will be going out very soon. So I wanted to reassure you that that plan must be updated every 5 years.
That's positive or negative? It could go down,
Positive,
it could end,
negative,
it could stop, or it could
it could stop. The board, the council, the towns could choose to end the fee if that is their desire. So, in conclusion, with the participation of the municipalities, primarily Bluffton, the estimated impact fee is about $9 million a year, or about $90 million over 10 years. The list of projects, as Mr. Otting mentioned, were $162 million. So this would reduce the borrowing of those needed projects and would partially offset that funding and potentially offset any increases for taxpayers. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Question before. Did you stop the question?
Well, yeah, first of all, the last part of what you just said was very important to everybody up here, whether we could revisit this within 5 years. It plays right into what the mayor was speaking to a minute ago, because you said the study was 2017?
The conversation began in 2017.
The
study was dated 2021. 2020.
Okay.
The study was dated 2020. It was passed in third and final reading by council in 2021.
All right, because again, 2018, 19, 20, the numbers were dropping here. The last year that she alluded to is an aberration, we hope. But anyway, I like the fact about coming back and revisiting in 5 years. The only other question I have is if Hilton Head nor Hardyville decide to participate, because the county's already in the other areas around us.
Yes, and already collecting.
What
yes,
happens?
The level of growth is not as large in those two areas, so it would have virtually, based on the conversation I had with Mr. Bice, the study would not have to be done. We would just continue collecting in the municipalities that chose to participate. And the bulk of the revenue would be from unincorporated and in the Bluffton area, in the town of Bluffton.
Question, Ms. Frazier.
Thank you for your presentation. I think definitely probably more than anyone here, I understand that there is a need in terms of being a former educator in here in Beaufort County and seeing classes take place now inside of cafeterias and the hallways and auditoriums. It's definitely not conducive for the best learning environment for our students or for staff to be in. And a concern that I brought up that I would like to see where your thought process is in it. I wouldn't have a problem, or I'm sure most people probably would be in favor of the impact fee. For me, it would come down to, though, what assurities or mitigation do you guys have in place to ensure that we won't continue to just be building schools, because when May River High and River Ridge was built, they were built at capacity. So from opening day, it was already not enough space. And I think that that becomes a concern for a lot of people. We don't want to just keep seeing schools be built in terms of, are we not looking at what the numbers are over a long time period in terms of what development projections are going to be, to ensure that we don't just turn into we're like building without looking further ahead, is my concern. So like what assurances do you guys have in place to say that, we won't be building to capacity on day one?
Well, I'll mention first, there is an annual report that is required to be prepared by staff and published for publication. It describes the amounts that are collected in the municipalities and unincorporated areas, the amounts appropriated or budgeted and expended. So that's one avenue that we could use to update certain information on an annual basis, but I'll let Mr. Otting speak to that.
So I love your question, partially because we have been behind, and the problem is funding. We need a funding source in order to build schools on time. We know right now we need another elementary school. I would like to be opening one right now. Pritchardville, as I said, was at 163% capacity. It has right now 10 mobile classrooms out. We're going to be adding more. I don't have a funding source to pay for it. So that is what this brings, and that's a great thing. The other thing I'd just like to talk about is that there is a question on the participation of Bluffton and Bluffton paying in. I was just looking, of the $163 million of projects projected to be needed in the next 10 years, $159 million are in Bluffton. So only $4 million of that is in Hilton Head. So that's the difference when you're talking about growth factor, is the bulk of the growth is in Bluffton. The bulk of the project needs are in Bluffton.
But to my question, if the impact fee passes, the approval here passes, and Bluffton contributes its share, what do you have in place, or what's the plan to ensure that we won't have a River Ridge or May River High School again, in a sense of, from the onset of first week, you already know that we got to build another school to address the building or the residents in that area, because it's already overcrowded?
So we update our projections every year. Like I said, we'll be presenting that to the Operations Committee tomorrow. And our problem is funding. That's the problem. We know we need buildings, and we would love the luxury of building them ahead of time. And actually, some districts will build schools far enough ahead of time that they'll only open, like say a high school. They may open the 9th grade first year, 9th, 10th, the second year. We've never had that luxury. We've just never had the funding to be able to do that.
I can jump in because I keep hearing her question that I think I hear, but I don't know that you're answering it. Are you working with the county? I think the best people that know where the growth of these young people are is our staffs. Planning, it's Beaufort County staff and Town of Bluffton staff. And I'd love to see more of a connection so you can know, when they come before us, what we feel it's going to bring. And they're the ones that know. So they're the ones that know where to tell you to look to put that school. I think that's where you're going.
Absolutely, because of
somewhere,
right.
And all of a sudden,
because the funding is coming from somewhere, in the sense of like, if we're at capacity and then money's allocated to buy or build in these mobile units to now house students, it's like, where's the planning, in a sense of, instead of having to rely on the mobile units, we already know that the projections for those numbers are going to be there. Let's build a school to address those future needs. Because the reality is, Bluffton is, you can't even buy a home. If you want to move here, it's home scarcity. So we know that that's going to bring students as well.
Yeah, a couple of questions to that standpoint, from the planning standpoint. The school district does planning. They know where the growth is at, as they've demonstrated to you all tonight. I think it's incumbent upon Mr. Steese and myself and our staffs to work together on providing an appropriate growth management strategy and not allow things from a growth standpoint to get out ahead of the infrastructure. I think the school district would applaud that.
I think our emergency management folks would applaud that. I think a lot of, I think the people that drive on our roads would applaud that. So I think that's part of the key to your question. I don't think the school district, if you ask Dr. Rodriguez or Tanya or Mr. Otting or Ms. Crutchfield, if they want to build another high school or another elementary school in Bluffton, they would probably tell you, no, not really. That they probably have enough to manage with the children that they have. So again, I think it's a combined effort that starts with the town staff, you all as city council members, the county staff, the county council members, the school district officials, and the school board working together to manage the growth appropriately and provide the funding opportunities. To your point about Hilton Head and Hardyville, Hardyville had this on their agenda, a council agenda, to approve the IGA about a month ago, but they pulled it off to give Dr. Rodriguez and I a chance to come and talk to all of the town council. So we're going to be we're scheduled for Hardyville here shortly. We're scheduled for Hilton Head in February. So we're going to be doing that whole circuit. So hopefully by the time we get through with all of this, we'll have all the municipalities participating in it, because to your point, and as I said, to your point, you know, is growth in Southern Beaufort County is to manage that and deal with that has got to be a combined strategy. We don't want any one entity, and I taught you all oftentimes, you've heard me say it with affordable housing, it's all about balance. We don't want any one entity paying more than they need to pay for what's going on in that area. So, and that's my commitment, and that'll remain my commitment to you all.
Well, let's not let tonight end in rhetoric. I agree. We definitely need to be on the same page here to make sure going forward we don't keep coming here.
To keep us on track, because this is very important, but we could have a workshop just on this and what our growth plans are. And I'm going to put the charge on Eric, since he brought it up, that he can get this staff together and start workshopping on growth, where it's going. Think about Ion in Charleston. You know, a developer had to build a school within his community. I mean, there's so many ways out of the box we can think. You've made me happy on 5 years. I was not going to pass 10 years. I just can't. I don't feel it in my bones that Bluffton is going to grow and grow and grow for the next 10 years, because I see the Bluffton numbers, and they don't lie either. And I don't know what the county numbers are. But 5 years to come back and let all of us regroup on this has made me happy. Any other thoughts for them or questions that they didn't answer?
I have one, Mayor.
Let me see if Larry has something first.
I'll hold mine until later. I mean,
Well, we're about getting to
Next
later.
steps.
We're getting to later.
Go.
Okay, quick.
Next steps.
Okay.
We got to move the ball on this.
Well, it's a workshop. We'll get it on an agenda. We don't vote on it tonight.
I know,
This is
but I mean, next steps.
So we'll get it on the agenda next month is what I'm thinking we would do. It's already been on an agenda.
We can have it on the agenda and council can discuss and make it in either table, move forward, do whatever that council would desire to do. And by then, will have met with Hilton Head and Hardyville probably, so we'll have an idea of where all those conversations have gone as well.
Go ahead. I'm
Okay.
good.
Just a couple of things. I know when our town attorney, we looked at the contract, it was a little confusing on must and would. I hope that IGA is a little more watched after, and I know you had some concerns over some of the wording, so we're going to count on Terry to get with Mr. Kevaney on that. Right. I'm just throwing it out there for future. Paul, I remember you standing right in front of us years ago about a $3,000 per unit. We voted on it. And a $2.50 per square foot of commercial, and I'm confused why commercials never played into this. I think that is a huge idea and thought we should consider. And it's not in it right now. It's just on residential.
I don't think commercial can contribute to schools on development impact fees. Eric can probably answer that better.
It's okay. It's just a thought. If it can,
it has to be based on the impact they actually have.
Okay, thank you. Well, then we would have been charging illegally, wouldn't we, Paul? I don't know what you're doing. Quickly.
Just pay
Yes.
school debt, see?
Yeah, I don't understand how business pay for the debt, but
We
then they
pay
can't
school
pay
debt.
for.
They can do bonds, but they can't do development impact fees because opening a Walmart does not impact schools. The residential units is what impacts the number of students that come in for schools.
Quickly, I'm going to make all of y'all stay till the
I
end
am
of
going to be
council.
quick. I just want to say thank you all for taking a serious look at this. It's been a long journey. It's been 14 years for me. You can remember when I came before your council in 2007 and asked you all to approve a capital fee because we weren't legally able to have impact fees then in schools. And you all cooperated. And then, of course, we had the recession of 2008, and nobody was building anything. And when they came back, they dissolved the PUDs and all sorts of this. So we never got a dime out of it. But we were fighting the battle to try to get growth to pay for itself a little bit, just like it does in highways, just like it does in parks and in libraries. But thank you all. I know you take a serious look at this. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This is a workshop. We'll have it on February's agenda. 30 seconds.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Christina Guides on the Beaufort County School Board, and I represent District 9, and I think I represent 4 of the 5 of you. So one thing I would suggest for your workshop, the board got the presentation from the Tischler Bice Company on December 10th, 2019. If you go to Beaufort County Channel and look up old, Board of Education videos, you can see the presentation. I've looked at it multiple times, including this afternoon. It's about 30 minutes long, and it answers many of the questions that were addressed tonight. It's really good. It also says on that video, there's a lot of impact. Different states have impact fees. It's regulated by law in South Carolina, and believe it or not, South Carolina is the only state in the nation that addresses the impact on affordable housing based on these impact fees. Nobody else does that. So that is actually in there, and that did not come up tonight. I'm sure everyone in this room, everyone on the council would agree that we want quality education for every student that's in our Beaufort County public schools, whether they live in affordable housing or a $2 million mansion. They need quality education. And the only way we're going to attract good development for our citizens is by having and maintaining a quality school system. And this is just one method of financing the quality education for our students. And where the fees are collected are where they're spent. So fees collected in Bluffton aren't going to be renovating Hilton Head High School. And I think that's real important that that be brought up.
I was going to ask that.
Thank you for your time.
So Dan, that did answer your question. It was a 19 study. Thank you all. Thank you for all the questions answered that we had, and we will have this on the February agenda. And I hope you all can have time. We would like those presentations to be made to Hilton Head and Hardyville, so I hope it fits in to that schedule. Next, the Town of Bluffton Annual Development Agreement Update. We have development agreements that encompass 92% of our town, and a requirement of each of them is to have an update through the years. People have moved, died, lost them. So we have Heather that does an overall view minus Palmetto Bluff, and Palmetto Bluff is our longest development agreement, and then followed by Palmetto Bluff's update. So Heather.
Thank you. So we've been talking about growth and development already a lot today. So what this is like you said, it's a snapshot or report of where the town is at with development agreements. So as you know, and I will say I don't have a presentation, all these numbers are hard to get on the screens, but it is all in your packet. And if you have any questions, it's lots of numbers. So whether it's the public or you all, please don't hesitate to contact us, even after any time. But again, 92% of our land is under a development agreement. Those development agreements have been approved years ago. There was a period of time where the clock was stopped, so to speak, by the state when the economy kind of took a dip, and then that's all been kind of redone. So the development agreements have been active and effective for a period of time, and they still have a period of time to go. Annually, we provide this update of where we're at as far as the number of units, residential units, commercial units, and all of the like as far as the build out. So if you go through, and again, you can see what that snapshot is, and Palmetto Bluff does do their own presentation, which they will follow, but their numbers are also included in the attachments as far as that snapshot. One thing I do want to say, I know this is all very, again, hard to read from there, but Over time, we are continuing to get closer to that build-out number. There's two different statistics that we've been tracking over the last couple years. So I do want to stress that there is what we refer to as the overall, there's the development build-out, and then there's utilized. So what you have is if we say it's utilized, that means that it could be a subdivision. So if you're driving by, you may still see trees and you won't. So the numbers are close, but they are different. And we've just started tracking that the last couple years. When I first came to you to do this report back in, it was the last one I could find handy was 2017. Our overall build out when you took the average of commercial and residential was 33%. The following year, we were at 38%. And again, this is all a little bit different because at that time we were doing an average of commercial and residential. We've since separated those out. 2019, 44%. Last year, again, that covered a little bit different time frame because of COVID. We started to adjust, and now we're doing these reports on the calendar year. Was 46%. Residential, I believe, 46% build out. Today, for permitted, we're at 52% and 54% utilized. So that's in 2022. And that's the overall, I'm sorry, that's that overall number. So that's everything. And again, you'll see we do break it down by development agreement area as far as those percentages and overall throughout. And like I said, I don't expect anyone to read these numbers from their seats. But again, this is all out there, and that's something that we continue to track.
So I just did a quick math. So on that first thing, you have Bluffton Village development rights percentage build out, residentially 84%. So that's right?
Oops, what did I do?
I know it went off.
Did I do?
Buckwalter, 71% residentially built out. I added those numbers. It shows residentially we're 80% built out.
In which?
Minus Palmetto Bluff.
That's quite possible, yes. Palmetto Bluff, I believe, is only 18%.
I don't think the residents realize that. They hear you say 54 and they drive home and they go crazy, so do I. But when you see residential, which is what's scaring everybody, versus, and taking the commercial out, as long as we have interconnectivity and all that stuff, it's going to make it right. That's a big number.
It is a big number, and what I'd really like to today, since this is a workshop, and obviously anytime you have questions or comments, as we continue to do this reporting, there's numbers. There's so many different numbers and things we can track. And I know maybe one of the things is actual built units. What's that versus what's permitted? There's also a lot of units you'll see on this chart that are in our development rights bank. So they haven't been retired. They're still out there. They still exist. But the likelihood of them being developed may not be very likely. So we can separate out and track what that equates to. I will also say that a lot of this information is used as part of our population projections. And so population projections, and I may have got this number wrong by memory in the past when I've answered some questions, but in 2014, that metric was 2.84 persons per household. So that's what we use with these numbers of units to come up with the math. Fast forward to the American Community Survey 2015 to 2019, that 5-year estimate, they used 2.74. We're waiting on the numbers of what they are today, so that will adjust. And that, again, that's that metric that we use to kind of fast forward and see where we're at build out. And again, doing the comprehensive plan, they're using all this information to kind of get a better snapshot. So you're right, a lot of that is used. Those units are actively being constructed, as we all can see. But again, this is a snapshot of where we're at. In your packet too, I won't go through it all unless you'd like to. This outlines for everyone those areas that I was talking about. So this is where you can see relative to that chart, the new Riverside area, Palmetto Bluff, so the areas of land that it references. And with this and in the packet is the summary of each. Pausing, this is a lot of information, but there is a development agreement summary for each of those areas. That includes all the amendments and what they're allowed to do, what the public dedications were. Again, just a snapshot and kind of a summary. Now it's catching up to my clicks, but this is just an example of what you'd see. So again, a lot of information. I didn't want to go through all those numbers, but I'm happy to, like I said, continue to track a little bit closer and try to better describe what staff means by build out and utilized, because again, we're talking about numbers. And again, a lot of this, the likelihood of us reaching maximum build out and using all of those units may not be very likely. It's still limited by land constraints and things like that, but we can't assume that they're removed. But again, the likelihood is not very high that they'll all be there.
Questions? Good update. It's good information on all of this that everyone watching and here can get access to under our agenda center, so you can see this. Thank you. These things keep popping off and on. There. Okay. Next, we have the annual Palmetto Bluff Development Agreement update, and who is doing this? Will. Welcome back.
Good evening. I'm happy to be back in a couple days.
Whatever you give us, do you have where we can put it on our website? Do you have something that we can have? Good. Kevin has it. Great. Okay.
And I can flip through it by just hitting the down button here.
Yes.
Great. Well, good evening. Glad to be back. First, Councilman Toomer and Councilman Hamilton, congratulations on the reelection. This is our first update for Palmetto Bluff. I'm excited to be here. It's been an interesting year at Palmetto Bluff, a good year, and we're looking forward to 2022. I know this. There we go. So I know you recognize my face, but also included my three other partners here, Chris Randolph, Jordan Phillips, and Patrick Melton. That is South Street Partners. Just put face with names. So starting with sales, so 2021, you can see a pretty big increase in the bar chart. So $391 million of sales. The orange is resale homes, and you can read the resale home sites down to developer home sites and developer homes. A record year of sales at Palmetto Bluff. This is number of units, 372 units sold in 2021. Home construction update, 794 certificates of occupancy through January 1st. 431 homes are either in construction or in review. That's a record number as well. 2022 strategic initiatives, product release. We anticipate with the release from last year and this year, which is M4 and M5, which we'll see on the next slide, approximately 40 lots. We have initiated and launched an internal home building program, which we call Palmetto Bluff Builders. Excited to get that going. Additional upgrades at the farm, including a pavilion and restrooms, is almost complete. Will be finished by Q1. Shooting clubhouse, there's a slide further on. We'll get you some more details there, but increasing the 5 stands along with a clubhouse, which will be delivered in Q1. Storage facility, that is the Citadel storage facility. It was on last year's update. We've got some updated pictures. They are just about complete. We're excited about that. One of the first items of our business back in June was the initiation of a $4.25 million renovation of the historic River House, which served as the Old Auberge Inn check-in and dining facility. That should be complete in Q1. Very excited about that. We'll have a steakhouse type themed restaurant along with a coffee shop and along with a speakeasy for our community members and property owners. SOAR Wellness, that was also launched last year. They have now broken ground and have started their development of their assisted living age-targeted facility. We've touched on this, but the next bullet point is we have re-engaged Hart Howerton, the original master planner of Palmetto Bluff, along with the Primar company out of Kiowa, to master plan the remaining aspects of Palmetto Bluff. We are nearing, I can't say completion of that, but we're making good progress and excited about the future. which includes Fayette, Anson, and then a revamp of the resort master plan. Here's just a map that shows the 2021 plus the 2022 releases, M2, M3, and M5, which will be coming online. Those are the 40 lots there in yellow as we make our way down through Moreland. This is the shooting club rendering. This is the storage Citadel facility on property. This is a rendering. I've got some pictures of the existing facility right here. Excited. Their leasing and pre-leasing has gone well, and we're happy with the product. This is a picture of the River House. Here are a few pictures of the River House restaurant renderings, which we all hope to be seeing in person in the next few months. The coffee bar as you enter the River House. And then the speakeasy that will be in the area where the wine cellar is downstairs at the River House. Here's the SOAR Wellness site plan. As I've mentioned, they've started site work, eagerly awaiting the construction there. And then here is, what I mentioned earlier is we progress through planning of Anson Village. This is just a map. Obviously, Palmetto Bluff has Wilson, Moreland, and then the third village being Anson. Excited to get going with the master plan there. The Montage Palmetto Bluff, we held our 2021 was the 5th year anniversary of its opening. 2021 record revenue and profitability, which was good to see. 2021 occupancy was just over 56%, and then the ACT contribution was just over 1.2 million annually. Palmetto Bluff, no other real update with Palmetto Bluff Montage. One of the, you maybe have heard on the streets, one of the aspects is Palmetto Bluff development consisted of 30 to 35 employees prior to January 1st. Palmetto Bluff development has taken over the operations and management of all the club facilities. So we have grown from 35 employees to just over 270. We basically transferred employees who were those of Montage managing the club over to our entity. Excited about that, excited to bring those folks in-house as we continue forward. Any questions?
Will?
One kind of caught my eye there, the ATAX contribution. We have numbers from the previous year?
Probably in the previous presentation.
Yeah.
The last presentation actually didn't have them in there. You mentioned it in the last meeting, so we made sure to include it, but we can get those to you. We'll get those.
I was thinking it was about that.
Yeah.
Before,
We can get
several
Natalie.
years ago. That's why I was.
We'll get you that update and that comparison.
Chris
They built a new inn, it was already up there close to.
Council get to stay free nights in this hotel?
No, you can't. Unless you disclose that.
Is it working, is it?
You made him blush. Other questions? It is good if council, it is a place, y'all have heard me say this many days, a partnership, because this is our largest annexation that took place and the longest. So anytime there's a celebration, I think we'd love to be part of it. Not to be given anything, but just to be able to understand and learn.
Absolutely.
So, any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to public hearing and final reading. We have the consideration of an ordinance to approve the amendment to the Town of Bluffton zoning map to rezone certain real property owned by J.C. Frazier Jr., consisting of 1.24 acres located on Goethe Road and identified by the tax numbers written on the agenda. This is also second and final reading. I will call for public comment, and Kim's left, and I don't think there is any, but let me do it anyway. First call for public comment for the public hearing of this item. number 11.1. Second call for public comment on the public hearing for item 11.1. Third and final call for public comment for the public hearing on item 11.1, and I believe the gentleman that spoke at public comment meant to speak at public hearing. Kevin, do you want to do a quick update? Were there any changes from last time?
No changes have occurred since the last meeting, and I'm happy to go through the presentation if you'd like. If not, I got the proposed motion in front of you.
Are there questions of Kevin on this particular item? Okay. Not, is there a motion to approve the request by J.C. Fraser Jr. for approval of an amendment to the Town of Bluffton official zoning map to rezone 2 parcels from residential general to neighborhood core? The subject parcels consist of approximately 1.24 acres and are identified by the Beaufort County tax map numbers that end in 159 and 744.
I make that motion.
Okay. Second.
Any discussion? Just for those here, there is a building in place. There were so many checkpoints that we wanted to make sure that didn't cause precedent for others to do this. And Kevin, you did a great job. And Stephen, thank you for kind of thinking out of the box. Your first little bit here, you really did try to see how we can make something work, and it's very appreciated. Discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. We are moving number 5 up, which is the acceptance of the presentation of the Town of Bluffton fiscal year 2021 audit by the poor people who thought they'd be on here in about 10 minutes from the start. But I appreciate, Trey, you waiting, and hope you learned a lot about Bluffton while you were on hold. So you are up, or Chris, you're up.
All right,
Who's
just
up?
real quick, good evening, Mayor and Council. As you all know, Trace Scott with Walden & Jenkins is our auditor. This is their 4th year of the engagement, I believe, and he will give a presentation tonight on the June 30, 2021 audit.
And you sent it to us, but this is it as well,
Correct,
right?
yep. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Chris. And Mayor, I absolutely learned a very good bit about the Town of Bluffton this evening, so thank you certainly for that. As Chris said, my name is Trey Scott. I'm a partner with Walden & Jenkins, who oversaw the audit of the town's 2021 financial statements, and certainly pleased to be here with you all this evening to discuss the results of that audit. Real quickly, just the purpose of my presentation today is to give you an idea of who Walden & Jenkins is, an overview of our auditor's report, our compliance report, and your financial statements. And then governmental auditing standards require me to communicate certain things to you all, and I'll do that at that point and answer any questions that you may have. Just to give you a real quick introduction of Walden & Jenkins, we've been around for a little over 100 years. We serve 565 governmental entities throughout the Southeast, out of 12 offices across 5 states. The office that serves the Town of Bluffton is our Savannah, Georgia office, which is closest to you all in proximity, and serve over 140 government entities who receive the GFOA Certificate of Excellence for Achievement in Financial Reporting each year, like you all do. Of particular importance, I think, to you all as it relates to our auditing of financial statements, our audit opinion. I think, as you all know, the town is responsible for that big book, that act for annual comprehensive financial report. It's our responsibility as your auditor to express opinions on that financial information based on our audit. We audit you all under government auditing standards and generally accepted auditing standards as well. And I'm pleased to report to you all this evening that we were able to issue the town clean, what we call an unmodified opinion. That basically means that your financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position and the results of the town's operations as of June 30, 2021. And that's what you're looking for, is a clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance we can provide to you. So certainly a good thing is something that management and the finance department should be commended. Real quickly on your financial statements, I want to make sure that you all are aware, you present an annual comprehensive financial report, and that goes above and beyond required reporting of a government entity. It includes additional sections outside of your basic financial statements, like an introductory section and statistical section. And that ASPR is submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, to their Certificate of Excellence program. And you do that on an annual basis. The GFOA reviews that and then presents you all the certificate if you meet all of the reporting requirements that things are reporting correctly. You've done that for 13 years in a row. In 2021 to be the 14th year. we certainly don't anticipate any issue with you all receiving the certificate for your fiscal year 2021 act. We also issue a compliance report, what we call our yellow report. It's on your internal controls and compliance. It doesn't provide an opinion like our auditor's report does, but what it's designed to do is to let you know if there are any significant issues with your controls or compliance at the town, and want to make sure that you all are aware that we had no significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses this year. So again, good news, easy to present, good news for sure. So that's something that, again, that finance and management should be commended. Really quickly, the next two slides are just kind of an overview, again, of the June 30, 2021 financial statements. Something you only see once a year, really, in that ACFR is your government-wide financial statements. It's where we take all of your funds and kind of roll up into more of a big picture, 40,000-foot view of the town itself. I'm not going to read these numbers to you, but I do want to point out a couple of high points. About I guess the next to last bullet down, you reported about 50.3 million in equity for net position. Basically what that means is your assets exceeded your liabilities by 50.3 million. And that's about a $10 million increase in your net position over the prior year, which is a very strong increase in your net position, and certainly is a positive thing. If we move over and kind of take a look at your general fund, which is something I think you all look at more on a day-to-day, month-to-month type basis, what I want to point out here is that third bullet point, 21.4 million in fund balance. And of that 21.4, about 17.2 million is unassigned. That's a very strong, good-looking unassigned fund balance, considering we just came, I guess this would have been the fiscal year after our pandemic year. So certainly a good thing to see there. The last bullet point down at the bottom just kind of gives you an idea of if you didn't collect another dollar, how long could you go before you ran out of funds? And in your unassigned fund balance, you have about 11 and a half months of expenditures. Again, that's very strong. And a lot of times I get the question, what may be not too strong, what may be too strong? Things you need to think about there, what are our fiscal year end? We're June 30 fiscal year end. Primary revenue source for us is property taxes, right? When do we collect it? November, December. So that's about 6 months away at our fiscal year end in June from collecting our primary property, our primary revenue source. Also have to think about contingencies. I mean, who foresaw this global pandemic that we had to go through? We also have to worry a little bit about Mother Nature, based on where we are in the country as well. So certainly 11 and a half months is a good, strong fund balance, and I think that's a good place to be as of where you are at this year. Here's just kind of looking at your general fund, your revenues, expenditures, your unassigned fund balance over the course of the last 5 years. Those are kind of the trends that I would like to see. Revenues are going up, expenditures are kind of flat, maybe decreasing slightly. The unassigned fund balance continues to go up as well. So good, strong numbers as well. Again, like I said earlier, it's certainly easy to present good information or easy to present positive information. Finally, real quick, just the things I'm required to communicate to you all. Again, had a clean opinion, had no audit findings or management comments. That's certainly a testament to the hard work that the folks we deal with primarily are Chris and Vicki and Cindy. Very professional folks, give us what we need when we need it. Certainly appreciate that, and it's very refreshing from my standpoint as your auditor. Had no difficulties in dealing with management, no disagreements with management. We had no uncorrected mistakes, so we had no audit adjustments that went uncorrected. And then finally, just want to make sure you all are aware that we're independent of the town as required by government law and standards and all the applicable standards of our profession. And that pretty much concludes what I wanted to report to you all tonight. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to serve you and look forward to serving you in the future. If you have any questions, be happy to answer those at this time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of council? Do we have to vote to accept this? Here, I have it right. No. I don't know that I have it. I moved it around so fast. Anyway, any other questions? Any questions of Chris or Trey? Trey, thank you very much. We do need to accept the presentation. So is there a motion to accept the presentation of the Town of Bluffton fiscal year 2021 audit by Malden and Jenkins LLC?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Great job, Chris. watching out for something very important to all of us. So, any other discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, Trey. We'll move back up to the front of the agenda, and that is item number 1 under section 11, consideration of acceptance of Pulte Home LLC's 100% annexation petition to annex certain real property contiguous to the town of Bluffton's corporate boundaries, consisting of a total of 100 acres, 0.78 more or less, located at 107 May River Road and bearing the tax number listed on the agenda. And if there's a referral to the Town of Bluffton Negotiating Committee if deemed necessary.
Great.
Yes, Kevin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you stated, this is an annexation request, 100% annexation request. It is one parcel of land. And we received a application on November 17th, 2021 for that. See, the applicant is requesting the property to be rezoned to the residential general pursuant to the Unified Development Ordinance, which does have a maximum of 4 dwelling units per acre. Should the town council accept this petition, and again, this is the intent to annex, so it's just accepting the application. It is not necessarily voting on any type of approvals. The applicant will be required to submit applications of concurrent requests for the zoning map amendment and comprehensive plan amendment to revise that future land use designation from the low density residential to the medium or high density residential. From an aerial standpoint, you can see on the map here, on the southern portion here is May River Road, Vista View, Hallmark, Pinecrest to the top, Buckwalter Place to the left, and you can see the property is contiguous with the town limits via Pinecrest. And then just an aerial view here to give you context of what the site might look like, or what the site does look like. The plat that was provided in the application. So the property, as we stated, is the 100 plus acres. It's in unincorporated Beaufort County, which consists of a single family home and the accessory structures. As stated previously during public comment, it is that May River Community Preservation, which is in the Beaufort County Community Development Code. The applicant intends to develop the site as single family residential, which, as we stated, has that maximum of up to 4 dwelling units per acre. I have a comparison list of allowed uses. This was in your packet. If there's any major concerns, I'm happy to go through them. But again, that residential general zoning district allows for single family detached, single family attached, no multi-family uses that are allowed, and very limited commercial uses, mainly daycares, some civic uses as such. As you can see throughout here. Future annexation area, this is located in the map here, so it is in our boundaries. The future land use map does call for that low density residential currently. As we stated, if it moves forward, there would be a concurrent future land use map revision to that high density residential. From the growth framework map, you can see that this is not located with any of our place types, the hamlet, the village, or the center, town center. From a review process and next steps, obviously this is step number 1. So we are here in front of you for that intent to annex and the acceptance of the petition. If it moves forward, if you so choose, and if you so choose to move forward with the negotiating committee, would then move forward on that process and start setting it up to bring it to that group. I'm happy to answer any questions. I do know that the applicant's attorney, Mr. Nestor, is here. He would like to say a few words, if you so choose, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have questions of Kevin at the moment, or do you want to talk first? Walter?
Sorry.
Welcome to our world.
I couldn't wait to get up here, I know.
You have to wait till the end, too. The longer you talk, you have to sit this out. I don't know where Dr. Rodriguez got to.
Yes, Mayor. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mayor and members of council. And congratulations, Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Toomer, on your reelection. And frankly, all someone has to do is sit through a meeting like this evening to understand and appreciate how much you do and how much you give to this community, and I'll tell you, it's appreciated. It's a large volume of information, and it's very much appreciated. So the Tarver tract, as has been described, is a little over 100 acres in size, and it's located approximately 1 mile from downtown historic district. As Kevin noted, as Mr. Eichard noted, it is in the future land use map. Your comprehensive plan contemplates the annexation of this property and provides it a future land use. One thing that Kevin didn't mention, and what I'm suggesting, is that the annexation be done pursuant to a development agreement with the town. The property has enough acreage for a development agreement, and in this way, the town council can work with the applicant to come up with a proposed development pursuant to a development agreement that's satisfactory to the town. What your comprehensive plan does charge you with is to achieve orderly growth while developing a more cohesive boundary. So your comprehensive plan contemplates, as noted in the maps, your comprehensive plan contemplates annexing this property, making this property a part of the town. It's a classic donut hole. Inevitably, this property is going to be developed. This application provides an opportunity for town council to work with the developer to come up with a development that town council believes is appropriate for the property. Many of the things that have been spoken about tonight, housing, the need for additional housing mix, all types of housing, those things are on the table. Interconnectivity, transportation, those things are on the table. And this property is a mile away from downtown historic Bluffton. The opportunity is for the town council to say, you know what, this presents an opportunity, let's give it to the negotiating committee, and if there's no agreement at the negotiating committee, town council can say no. Town council can say we don't want to annex it. It's a significant duty that you all have to figure out what's in the best interest of the town of Bluffton, and I appreciate that. What we ask is that you don't determine now, today, just based on the application, what might be in the best interest for the town and the landowner. Give it the opportunity to have a discussion with the negotiating committee. Let us go through the process so that we can answer the questions and provide some of the benefits that you as town council seek to provide to the citizens of the town. And we're glad to answer any questions that you have. With me tonight is Mr. Robert Merrick, Patterson Farmer, and Josh Tiller, who's a landscape architect. We're available and willing to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Walter.
Thank you.
Questions? Questions? Just one question, just curiosity. The May River Community Preservation District still in place. The CP districts are all still in place with the county, and I think Eric's here and he's shaking his head. What is that per acre in the May River CP?
They're allowed 1 unit for every 3 acres.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I had read that, and then the other side of the street it's larger, 1 per 5, I think. Okay. Questions? Is there a motion to accept Pulte Home Company LLC's 100% annexation petition to annex certain real property contiguous to the town of Bluffton's corporate boundaries, consisting of a total of 100.78 acres, more or less, and bearing the county tax map number 600-038-0023. Motion? No motion. Okay. Thank you. Moving on, item number 2, consideration of the acceptance of university investments, 100% annexation petition to annex certain real property contiguous to the town of Bluffton's corporate boundaries, consisting of a total of 12.348 acres, more or less, located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Buckwalter Parkway and Lake Point Drive, and bearing the tax numbers written on the agenda, and if necessary, to refer to the Town of Bluffton Negotiating Committee. Kevin.
Great.
And again, real quick, for those who maybe still left, this was set up long ago for transparency to see if we even wanted to put staff through the rigor of going through the process. So whether we vote yes or no, it doesn't mean it's a done deal. Just wanted to remind everyone of that. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. All right. So from an introduction standpoint, I'm going back about a year and a half here. So that is not incorrect where it says July 14th, 2020. So we received an annexation request for the Grandy Oaks LLC for an annexation of 2 parcels that was a total of 13.399 acres at the corner of Buckwalter Parkway and Lake Point. So that previous request had a concurrent development agreement amendment, which had additional development rights of the 13.933 acres of general commercial, 15 dwelling units, and a conditional addition of 120 dwelling units in the event that University Investments did acquire the property. So, and then at that October 13th, 2020 meeting, there was no motion made, therefore the agenda item died for a lack of a motion. Now, in November of 2021, University Investment, who has since acquired one of the parcels, has submitted the revised application for consideration of 12.34 acres located at that same corner that we've been referring to, and the property ID is listed there. So with that, pursuant to the annexation manual, they would request that it's incorporated into the Buckwalter Plan Unit Development, the concept plan, and as well as the development agreement as part of the Buckwalter Commons land use tract. And I've got some images here to help explain that, which does have that designation for a broad mix of uses, as well as the comp plan amendment to change that future land use designation from medium density residential to medium intensity commercial. And just for a comparison purpose, I thought this was going to be pretty helpful from that previous request to the current request. So the general commercial development rights has been reduced. That's also because of the actual acreage that they're requesting for annexation has been reduced. Dwelling units, both the request of the 15 and the conditional have also been reduced. The applicant has stated that if there's any residential development on this property, they would be using existing development rights, residential development rights that they currently have in their possession to go towards that property. So they're not looking to increase any of the dwelling unit numbers at this time. It's just the commercial designation that they would be increasing with this annexation. From an aerial standpoint, again, you can see the property here. The previous request included the piece at the corner, which has since been removed from the request, and from an aerial standpoint as well. Plat was being provided. Here's the proposed Buckwalter Commons concept plan. To make it a little bit easier to see, you can see the current concept plan where the dotted line represents the municipal boundaries. The red that you see here represents that what we call the Buckwalter Commons land use, and that's that intense general commercial land use that we have. So you can see across the street is, in essence, would be the Parkers, and the self-storage facility is across Buckwalter Parkway in that red, and then the portion to the right is the Robertson tract. The proposed concept plan, you can see where they would just extend that Buckwalter Commons designation down into this property. Again, there's approximately 12.3 acres. It's currently vacant. It does have a current village commercial designation under the Grandy Oaks PUD. At this time, the applicant does not have any specific plans for the property. But they would look to preliminary planning. It would include a mixed-use type development, commercial village setting, potential residential above commercial, medical services, and commercial establishments. Again, the request is for that 12.348 acres of general commercial. Here's just a copy of the Grandy Oaks PUD master plan, just outlining that village commercial in red, and this is the property that we're referring to. There is a list of uses of a comparison from Beaufort County's Village Center to Buckwalter Plan Unit Development of the Buckwalter Commons land use tract. There are over 100 potential uses that are listed in here. These uses range anywhere from, that intense commercial uses that are currently allowed. If you were to drive up and down Buckwalter Parkway, you can see the majority of those type of uses that would also be allowed at this property. Also, just so you know, and the whole reason of that intent to annex, staff has not done a very detailed analysis of all of these uses. Just as you said, the amount of energy that it takes to go through this process, we wanted to move forward with the intent first before we started doing the serious analysis on them. From a future annexation area, you can see I've kind of highlighted it here. It is within the boundaries. It does the future land use map. You can see it has that medium residential, and we'll be changing it to the medium commercial. From a growth framework standpoint, this is located in the town center district. And as stated before, from a review process, this is the intent to annex. And then if necessary, if you deem necessary, you'd like for this to move forward, you have the opportunity to send it to the negotiating committee where they can negotiate any terms of the agreements. I'm happy to answer any questions. I do know that the applicant's attorney, Mr. Hammett, is here. I believe he would like to say a thing or two, but I'm able to answer any questions you have for staff.
Questions? Thoughts of any? Okay. Questions over here?
Okay.
Hammett, did you want to say 30 seconds or did you have something to add to it, or were you asking if there were any questions?
No, I have something to add. I represent the applicant. We've got John and Jake Reed here, University Investments, and we've also got Nathan Long from Thompson Hutton, who helped put together everything. I'm here to make essentially 2 points that really hadn't been talked about before, but they're in favor of bringing this property in. As the staff report says, when you read it in detail, everything's already allowed in there. Single family, multifamily, commercial, even hotels allowed within the Grandy Oaks. The big question is why, and that's fairly commensurate with the Buckwalter Commons. They aren't exactly one-to-one, but they're very close. The question came up, has come up a couple times, well, if you can do all that stuff already, why would you bring it in? Well, two things I'd like to mention. One goes back in history, and that's why I'm given to do it, because I was here. I represented Mr. Robertson, along with Jim Tiller, Josh's dad, when we did the Grandy Oaks PUD. It's before there was any Bluffton stretching around it, before we did the Buckwalter annexation. But Union Camp had done its own internal planning of the site. And we sat down with Union Camp to see what they were planning around this square, which is a square donut hole right in the middle of Buckwalter. And it was mostly residential coming around it, but at the top, across the entire northern boundary, the top of the square, land that currently University Investments owns, that's Buckwalter Commons. It was all Buckwalter Commons. So what they decided to do, that was Jim Tiller and Robertson and Jack Alderman encouraged it, was to zone it under the PUD that was in the county to reflect what they were going to be doing right next to it, immediately next to it. So that's why the only places you see village commercial in the Grandy Oaks plan is up there right across the line. Everything else is various residential and is mostly now developed as residential. Part of the reason for that was it was a system of wetlands that divided it, and those lands across the top, one of which we're looking at now, but those lands were generally more accessible from the north. Plus, Robertsons weren't commercial developers, and they were anxious to zone it so it could be developed by whoever, whether Union Camp went forward with the greater Buckwalter plan or somebody else did. So that's why it was done that way. And it's always been planned to be that way together. John Reed, and to the extent myself, have talked to various town regimes. mayors, managers over the years. We've looked at maybe bringing in some pieces, trying to deal with Mr. Robertson about purchasing. That's never happened until now. John first got it under contract when you saw us a year ago, now has bought this 12 acres. And so really what we're doing is realizing the original plan of hooking it up to the Buckwalter Commons. The other thing, other than that history, that I wanted to make sure everybody knows is that there are practical reasons for doing this, for not just developing it in two different jurisdictions, even though they allow the same thing. When it comes to planning roadways, accesses, parking, open space, landscaping, stormwater management, it's easier to do that all under one master plan and under one planning jurisdiction. And John would rather that be the town of Bluffton. We've dealt with Bluffton from the outset. If this isn't brought in, then it has to be done completely independently, even though the same things can be done completely independently with two different planning departments, and it's hard to coordinate. Hard to coordinate how accesses can work. There's even the opportunity, as we've discussed before, from some interconnectivity to come all the way through to allow people to get out into that broader commercial area that runs down Bluffton Parkway above it and provide that interconnectivity so people won't have to go up and down Buckwalter to get there. We think it makes a lot of sense. The actual master planning would come to this council if we're annexed in as Buckwalter Commons. That gives us the flexibility to work out a master plan that works with the property, because University Investments owns all of that property above Grandy Oaks there. So that's basically what we're looking at. When it comes to density, if anything's increased, we're not increasing anything. All these things are already allowed. They say it just makes sense to put them together, and historically we were always going to put them together. If anything, there's a reduction, because when John bought the property, this 12.348 acres from the Robertson family, it came with 15 units of density, and we have elected not to ask for it this time around. So we're actually cutting 15 units of residential density out of the world. It's now permitted under Beaufort County. We're not asking that come in. So it's not a great deal of reduction, but it is a reduction of density. It's not an increase of anything. The only thing that will increase is the tax base of the town and the ability of the town to help work with us for how to develop it. We really look forward to doing that.
Thank you. Anything else other than the end? I just want to get the questions.
That's all I've got.
Okay.
And John might want to say hello
Yeah.
if you got time.
Oh, sure. I just had a few questions that came in. But please, yes.
I want to, annexation, we hear that word a lot. This is completely different than the case you just heard. I mean, we're actually not asking for any more density, zero. No not one single new use or anything. Then we listened to y'all and we took it out. We took out the acre and a half in the corner because we didn't control it. And we didn't want to ever say we're going to do something and not do it. And we didn't control that acre and a half in the corner, so we took that out of the request. But I want to be sure that y'all understand that the only reason we're doing this is it's the right thing to do. It's all we've talked about for 15 to 20 years. It's the right thing to do. It was almost wrong. It puts such a hardship on us to have to develop. We own both pieces of property. It's one piece of property now. It'd be a very hardship not to go ahead and the same use, the same rights. We're not asking anything else, but just for y'all to manage it, and one group manage it instead of two different groups manage it. So I'd appreciate you thinking about that. And we've owned the property for 20 years all around there, and we're now ready to develop it. We've worked with y'all. I hope you think about how we'll do a good job. Whatever we do, we will do a good job, and I appreciate you. Thank y'all.
Thank you, John. Questions of Kevin?
I have some questions, Mayor. really directed toward council and Stefan. But
Stephen or Stefan?
Stephen, sorry.
Stefan after 7?
Stephen. So anyway, I mean, obviously, this is a step of the process. It doesn't mean we've approved anything if we allow the conversation to go forward. And it can always be taken off the table at any time this council would so desire. My question is, you know, when you annex in, you're annexing in to an existing development like Buckwalter, and you get all of the items that come along with that was listed up here on the document that Kevin presents. And there's a lot of parallels there when you look at it. I mean, there's a lot of things that the county does allow that's in sync with what the town allows. And then there's a lot of conditional items on here, more so in our side of the ledger than the county's side of the ledger. My question is there a mechanism in place? Because we don't truly know what the applicant's desire is. I mean, as far as what he may gain or not gain on the ledger on our side of the sheet, you know, something that they just haven't said yet. Is there a way to negotiate this, that even if you come into that Buckwalter PUD, if you were annexed in, that there's a way that we can take what zoning you are actually allowed, but if we wanted to take a piece or 2 or 3 or 4 pieces out of the zoning, we could do that? Can we do that somehow?
That could be negotiated, yes.
So you can do that negotiating. He would have by right if we annex him, but we can, to negotiating, remove some of the points off he would get by right by coming into the town.
But our negotiating committee could do that, yes.
Okay.
Okay, I was going to follow up with that. So we know warehouses are not anything we have an appetite for, but warehouses are a use on this. So it would have to, wait, we're talking to Terry real quick. But that's just an example, but that could be removed even though they are in Buckwalter Commons through the negotiating committee.
There's a number of ways that could get accomplished, yes.
You're not, okay, but it can be done.
I would use, for example, just what y'all did with St. Gregory the Great. You actually created a new planning designation, I think it was.
Yeah, we created the St. Gregory the Great planning tract when that came through.
Those allowable uses as part of their annexation. So that would run concurrently. That could run concurrently.
Yes.
With the annexation.
Yes, and again with. You know, we talked about the energy that's necessary to really analyze all of this. By moving forward, we can look even further into both that general commercial designation or a neighborhood commercial designation, which is a little bit less intense use. And that could potentially remove some of those uses that are at higher intensity that you're referring to that you more likely don't want to see. That's something that can be looked into. And various options could then be brought in front of the negotiating committee to consider.
Yeah, and last question. Would the means be just through negotiation, or would you actually come up, like he said, would you give it a special designation, or would you actually tie a development agreement to it?
Well, you could skin the cat a lot of different ways. You could do up like we did with St. Gregory's, as do a restrictive covenant on the property. Lots of ways that you could get your goal accomplished.
Okay.
So what would be your recommendation if we wanted to explore some of those restrictions tonight?
I would recommend that you accept the request, which is what they're requesting, is that the petition be accepted, and then ship it to the negotiating committee.
So question on that. A lot of that, and I'm fine with negotiating committee, but also know council has a lot of different thoughts and they like to do it. Could it also be worked out at a staff level with the comments from council on creating things? So could we do negotiating committee at a later date, or does it automatically have to go to that tonight?
I think staff probably has enough guidance from you tonight to try that. You could always send it to a negotiating committee at some future point if you needed to.
I'm fine either way. I just know if we can work through it at that and you hear our thoughts on it, and if it's not working, then you can always come back, because you're going to have to come back at some point anyway, and say, I think this probably should go to negotiating committee, because you never know. You may think that the negotiating committee through council is a little bit stronger in their desires, but I'd like to see it worked out if it could be before you get too much effort into it.
From this evening, kind of what I'm hearing, what staff will work on is you do have concerns about various higher intense uses, the warehouses, the mini warehouses. I don't know if there's any other specific ones that you're looking at, but we can work with the applicant to kind of start crafting some of this, and then what we can do is put it on the negotiating committee if there's a specific time frame that you would like for us to kind of shoot for, and then from there start following the process.
What I think, Council, is that we need to have the applicant give us some more intent what he's going to do with the property.
So it's just to continue this intent to annex, and then have a little bit more refined information provided to you, and then from there you can then determine if you want to go to negotiating committee.
That's what I think.
Okay.
All right.
So tonight is just, are we interested in even pursuing? That's it. And then next steps would be.
Bring this back in as intent to annex as for another meeting.
At that point, we can figure out.
Then you can determine if you want to move forward.
So, okay.
With staff recommendations at that point. I mean, you still need to put some eyes on some of it, don't you?
Right.
Certainly.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to get some kind of idea of what it is that want to be done.
Yes.
I mean,
That's it.
we all just sat here and heard the school board. Yeah. Eric. Do we need more townhouses? Do we need more houses right now? Or should we pay attention to what we're hearing?
Housing is not included. Housing is not a part of this.
They're not asking for that.
They're not asking for housing.
I know, but within it could be.
No.
It's all commercial.
Right.
Well,
They
they've
took
already
it
got
off.
by right.
So go back to the by right thing.
They took it
Yes.
off of that.
Oh, you took. And that was kind of where I was thinking,
Right there. See, Larry, none.
Yeah, they took it out.
No additional.
Yeah, so they.
Nothing new.
Yeah.
Nothing new, but it already has some.
But we
Yeah,
can't stop that.
But I realize.
Okay.
but we can if it's under negotiating committee.
What we really want to
Wait,
do.
come up to the microphone, Mr. Reed.
The question is, we're still planning it because we've owned it for 20 years and the whole area, we're trying to plan it. And the goal would be a promenade, something like a really great mixed-use village. I was talking to the president of one of the board members of Hampton Lake, and he said, we love the promenade, but we'd like to have one out in Buckwalter, so we don't have to, whatever. But that's been my goal all along, is to do a wonderful mixed-use gathering place. And we had the opportunity to make it apartments, to do an apartment complex there. We chose not to do that. We may have we may have a few units above some commercial and whatever, but it's a mixed-use village, and no new units. All the units we already have the right to do it anyway.
How many units are there? What can be built there now? How many dwelling units?
In all of Buckwalter? I don't know.
No, just this property.
Oh, just 15. Just the 10 acres, there's just 15 units, and we're giving those up, though. I mean, we got that in there, but we said, no, we won't do it. But we might put units above, like in the promenade, there might be live, work, and stuff like that, because people want that. But it won't be an apartment complex. Right now, we're planning to put something very similar. I won't say the use of the promenade, but that's what people want. They want to gather, and that's what we're working on.
I think
I don't know if
Larry
I
and I
answered
both are confused on the slide, Kevin. That's fine, and you can stay, John, the slide right now, tell us what the request currently is.
This was their request back in 2020.
Right.
Okay.
So they currently have development rights under the county code for development, for commercial development. I don't know the exact acreage of what they're allowed, but it's a 12.3 acre parcel of land. And they have that village commercial designation. I apologize here, I'm gonna go to.
Well, when I was reading it, it said that it was almost the same, and I think. What I'm asking is.
Yes.
How many units, how many residential units could you build there today?
Yes,
15 total.
Okay.
Yeah, through Beaufort County, they have 15 dwelling units. And what they're referring to is that they're not asking to bring those units over from the county into the town. They're saying that he already has a cloud of units that if he needs to use them, he already owns, that he could use them on this property. So he's not requesting new units from you.
Okay, so there are current units that would have to go, and again, this is just, are we interested? Sounds like we're going to move it over to get all these answers. There's just so many unknowns.
It's still clear as mud to me.
So
it's muddy, yeah. Like, what is that pocket? What is the idea?
I think I'll tell you that we have a total of roughly 250 units. We've got a contract on 250 units on another parcel in Buckwalter right now, or excuse me, LOI, and another parcel that's by right and so forth. So we won't have, if we have anything, it'll be 20, 30 units maybe, because we don't have any more units, At one time, the people wanted to.
If I could just chime in really quick, because I think I'm trying to interpret the
the question and answer. I know it's
just remember too, and I'm kind of going back to my development agreement, the development agreement summary. Remember, there's units in Buckwalter, and then there's land. They don't necessarily go together until you sell the units and transfer the units to the land. So what Mr. Reed's saying is that he controls 250 units. So, just for simple math. So those units are just kind of out there floating in Buckwalter development agreement, and he owns this property. He could transfer some of those units. So he's not requesting any additional units from town council. Those units could be used elsewhere in Hampton Lake or another property, or he could sell part of those units, 200 units, and then use 50 units here. So it's again, when you talk about that pocket of land, it's kind of floating.
That's the
all
answer
depends.
I was trying to get. What can we say? How many units could be built there, in case you sell it tomorrow, or what if you sell it to somebody else, Pulte, and they want to build the very solid maximum amount that they could possibly build, like normal. That's what I don't want.
It doesn't add one unit to what they can already build in Buckwalter.
Yeah, that's the key thing.
That's the key point.
I need one person at the mic. All of y'all, I feel like y'all are going to come stand back here in a minute. Just there.
We're not adding one unit to the density. Not one.
So they're asking the intent to move to the next steps, to get to these questions, and if it goes to negotiating committee, and I know we have other questions, but my thought is, if somebody bought it, yes, sir, yeah, I'll quit, because
As part of the negotiations, if you elected to accept the petition, part of the negotiations could be, thou shalt not put more than X units on these 12 acres.
We'd be okay with that.
Thank you. That's where
I think that would solve the questions that we've been kind of beating around.
When are we going to come up with that?
Well, right now, it's just a petition to move. Do we have an appetite for it, essentially?
Do we have an appetite for it in any form? And at some point, do we want to send it to negotiating committee, or do we want to see what staff can do at a staff level on our wishes of what to do? And I guess I had two other questions. One, does it have to go in Buckwalter Commons? Does it have to? I know it's been requested to, but doesn't that eliminate all the concerns of?
Yeah, so the Buckwalter Commons is that land use tract that we're referring to. If, if so choose, that's something that staff can look into a little bit more and bring that in front of the negotiating commission as possible alternatives beyond just that land use in the Buckwalter Commons. One example, as I stated, was that maybe that neighborhood commercial designation.
And my other question, and I just remembered this from several years ago, the wish of staff at the time was to bring all of it in at one time, and I feel that this is going to happen, and then you're going to do it again and again. I just wish we could do the whole parcel and figure it out, but you didn't go that route. You see how the county talks. They're frustrated. We do not, and this is my concern, is traffic. That red light could go away tomorrow. That red light's temporary. And we've just got to be careful. Not only do you have, 1,000 people that live behind you that don't live in the town that we're going to hear from, and I hear my inner Fred, somehow we got to get buy-in on what could be there and what they want. And how are you going to get people in and out with just one red light this temporary? And that was my only concern last time. Like, we don't even know our transportation plan. Y'all were here and you heard this little bit of frustration. So I don't feel like getting thrown under the bus too many more times, but we just all have to be in this together on how we figure that out. And it's not for tonight, but just that's in my head.
We understand that, and people have brought that up, just like we tried to answer the density, we tried to answer take the corner out. We tried the transportation, we can't answer because the county and the town, although we're setting up a meeting soon with the county and the town to talk about some transportation issues. But what we're trying to do is create a situation where people actually live and walk and they park and gather and so forth. And it'll connect to the Innovation Drive where there will be a light, which is supposed to be right now from the county. If you remember, when we gave that easement, they can't develop, weren't supposed to develop it until they put a light up there. So we will help somewhat the transportation system. What we're by building a walking gathering place. That's what people want, and that's why your neighbors, they'll like it instead of hating it. Of course, there's always going to be 5% that hate it, anything that's changing. But I know that we're doing a good job, and we're planning it, and we've been planning it for 20 years. We've been wanting to do this for 20 years. So I appreciate it. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Starting point, just about the changes. We can, under the 13th Amendment, as Terry was talking about, it says it'll come in and says Buckwalter Commons. We can attach a list of 5 or 50 uses that are not going to be allowed. And if there's any limitations, we can attach that to it.
Thank you very much. And I think we heard that with Terry. Is there a move to accept University Investments LLC 100% annexation petition to annex certain real property contiguous to the town of Bluffton's corporate boundaries consisting of a total of 12.348 acres, more or less, bearing the tax number listed?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I don't know which one said it faster. Any discussion? Okay, do you understand where we will go from here? You're going to give it a shot?
Yes, ma'am.
Bring it back and let us decide if we want to send it to negotiating, or does council also want to send it to negotiating now? Or do you want to let Kevin work with it and then let us all consider?
I would like to see staff come up with suggestions and come back to council, and then they can always kick it to the negotiating committee. We'll know whether we're on the same page.
I think that's great.
Okay. Just so I'm clear, we will bring this back prior to bringing it to negotiating committee with those recommendations.
Just to get a final. We're not voting to send it to negotiating committee at the moment.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Right.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Next is, y'all can't go. You got to stay for the whole entire council meeting. Sorry. It's a learning moment. No, you can leave if you need to. Consideration, but I appreciate that y'all were scared. Well, join the club. Consideration of an ordinance amending the Town of Bluffton's Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, to include provisions to address location requirements for special events. This is second and final reading. Were there any changes from first?
No, there were not.
Is there a need to hear it again? If not, is there a motion to approve the proposed amendment to the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Property, Article 4, Special Events Ordinance to include provisions to address locations, requirements for special events? This is second and final reading, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that needs to be corrected. This was pulling up from the.
That's okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Number 4, consideration of an ordinance to place deed restriction on town-owned property, references New Riverside Park located at 30 Red Barn Drive. This also is second and final reading, and there were no changes or discussion at the last meeting. Did Dan vote on that last one? I didn't see he left.
He left.
He wasn't in here.
Can you say that, what did he do then? Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I'm pulling up the motion here. I did not have it handy. I apologize.
There was no discussion. Y'all good? Y'all need a presentation on this? If not, is there a motion to leave it right there? Move on second and final reading the ordinance approving the declaration of covenant for the New Riverside property located at 30 Red Barn Drive and identified by Beaufort County tax map 601-036-1319.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor state by saying aye. Aye. That's 4. I think you got to put it 4 and 1 abstain or something. So we jump to item 6, consideration of an ordinance amending the Town of Bluffton fiscal 2022 budget to provide for expenditures of certain funds and to allocate sources of revenue for said funds. Chris, you are not going to be long, are you?
No. I understand that I stand between you and your
Question is not
your
about
homes,
Chris,
so.
is if Dan is going to be long
Do it
asking
quick,
questions
hurry,
to
before
Chris.
Dan sits here.
Okay, you got it.
All right. So there's 3 main components of the major budget amendment this year. The first is the spend plan for ARPA dollars, some general fund programs that we'll add, as well as CIP project changes. So overall, this is kind of the framework for the ARPA spend plan. There's about 30% of this would go towards the support of town employees, 26% going towards nonprofits, another 26% going towards economic development programs, and 17% going towards affordable housing initiatives. Tonight, we're just focusing on the first column, which is FY22. So the first section of ARPA dollars we are going to claim as replacement of reduction in revenue. As you recall from the ARPA briefings, ARPA defined the reduction in lost revenue based off of the previous 3 years prior to the COVID pandemic. And since our revenue trajectory was about 9% annually at that time, even though we had a year-over-year increase in revenue, it didn't quite meet our trajectory, so it allowed us to claim reduction in revenue. We're going to claim about $579,494, and in turn, we'll use those for 3 programs, one being a COVID retention incentive program, $59,000 for the first year of the Regional Housing Trust Fund, and a $22,000 for a small business training incubation program. Then we have nonprofit assistance grants of $236,000 and business assistance grants for $175,000. So regarding the COVID retention incentive program, this is slightly different than what we had originally discussed. Initially, we were bouncing around the idea of a bonus program for hours worked during the beginning part of the pandemic. Essentially, it was discussed that there was questions about the state legality of bonuses for past pay. We're turning the program into an incentive stipend to recognize for the work of town staff for addressing the ongoing concerns around COVID, including the most recent spike. And it'll be stipends that would be paid out monthly over 6 months. And it'd be still tiered like we had discussed before, the top tier being sworn officers. The total over 6 months would be $4,800. Employees in high contact positions like public services, customer service, court would be $3,300. And then the rest of the town employees, the support administrative employees, is $2,100. Next, we have the nonprofit and business assistance grant programs. And the structure will be very similar to the nonprofit program set up by Hilton Head. Their grants are a little bit more because they received a lot more money than us, but our max grants would be $20,000. And it'd be to address negative economic impact from the COVID-19 public health emergency. Eligibility for nonprofits will be nonprofits that serve Bluffton, and for small businesses would be less than 50 employees, headquartered in Bluffton with active business license and current on local taxes. And then this program will be subject to the ARPA guidelines, which are very specific on what the cost can cover. So it's primarily around addressing the impact of COVID, whether it be the cost they incurred to acquire equipment or implement new procedures, health safety procedures, to weather periods of closure of their business or other financial hardships caused by the pandemic. So the general fund adjustments, we just talked about $990,000 of the ARPA. We also have in there a transfer to CIP of $70,000, which I'll go over on the next slide. Community preparations for the 4th of July event of $35,000. Additional USCB ambassador program classes. I believe that they're going to add 4 classes with the additional local aid tax revenue. We talked about it early in the night when they presented their check, but there's $55,000 regarding Willow Run tract and a historic preservation program. So last budget amendment, we designated the dollars, and this budget amendment item will be to budget the actual expenditures for this fiscal year should they arise from the program. CIP adjustments, the LAC reflective garden of $75,000, transfer of UTCs to general fund for the Willow Run, which I already discussed, police officer fitness course of $50,000, and a $70,000 for scheduling, time reporting, and payroll system consolidation and automation. This goes towards one of our strategic action items on automation and leveraging technology to improve efficiencies. So this is a summary. The first budget amendment was primary carry forward was $11.1 million. The proposed budget amendment tonight is almost $1.6 million for a final proposed FY22 budget of $52.8 million. Any questions?
Questions?
Just one question, Chris. Where you refer to the nonprofits, the small, all right, nonprofit providing services within Bluffton or small business less than 50 employees headquartered in Bluffton with active business license. What are the qualifications or I mean?
So the specific outline, procedures, and qualifying factors, as well as backup documentation that the entities will have to provide to participate in the program, will be outlined and included in a agenda item for next meeting. This is just approving the dollars for the program. Okay. The qualifying costs, again, would go towards that last bullet. So they could only get reimbursed for things that would fall within those categories. And the maximum grant would be up to $20,000. And it doesn't mean you'd be guaranteed $20,000. You'd have to justify it. But yeah, that's the overall structure.
And this is just a thought off the top of my head with us having the abundance of A-tax and H-tax that we do. Nonprofits are the only ones that can get that.
Right.
So to speak. Better way of using this, I mean, for nonprofits, or if you understand what I'm saying, I mean, do we want to give this money to nonprofits, or do we want them to apply for H-tax or A-tax since we have so much of it?
Well, A-tax is
a difference, though. But give it away.
A-tax is very restrictive. It's only regarding programs that support tourism, whereas this would be supporting basically the impacts of the COVID pandemic on their, not only the revenue, but also the communities that they serve. A lot of them were severely impacted by the COVID pandemic as well.
I get you.
Questions? A couple of things. I might have missed the email.
Yep.
When did we decide to have a 4th of July party? Is the town going to sponsor one?
Yeah.
We are? Oh,
This
Missed
would
that
be,
memo?
I missed the memo.
You missed that
Great, I'm
memo?
excited, but I missed it. I guess y'all read it?
We weren't
Well,
going to tell you until the end.
there's no memo till we have the money to plan it.
Okay.
If council will approve the funds to do so, we're talking about doing a fireworks and small event since we did not do that last year.
But
So-
once we do something, we got to really think
Every
about
year.
budgeting it every year.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
I've just two other things. The stipend that's given out, since that's ARPA money, is that something they've got to claim as income, or is that tax-free? Or do they get it taxed?
no, it is taxed, yeah.
It is taxed. Okay. Well, not everything. I just thought since it was helping them, they shouldn't have to tax it. It was-
Stipends are always taxed. As a
Okay.
teacher, everything we got was
Well, that
taxed.
stinks. Okay, and you all deserve it, by the way, and I hope that spreads out that that's coming. And then where is the fitness, did I miss the fitness course memo?
So
Where's that being
this is
built?
their obstacle course, and this is going to go behind the new parking lot. I believe that was in the original.
Again.
So there's land for it?
We have land for it, and there's been discussion of it, but until there's money, it's not going to get designed or built.
I got you. I
But
just
right
didn't-
now, they have to set up and take down the obstacle course every time they want to run it, and they've been doing it on the Evercore property or someplace else. So what they're talking about is we have some land right off the parking area going back towards the wetlands area, that they were going to cut a little area out and set it up permanently so it would be fenced and be within their secure area that they could have room back
Gotcha.
there.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't know that. That's all I had. Any other questions? There motion to approve the first reading of an ordinance amending the Town of Bluffton fiscal year 2022 budget to provide for expenditures of certain funds and to allocate sources of revenue for said funds. There's second?
Second.
Any discussion? Do you wait till second reading before you disperse the
Yes.
start? When does a monthly stipend start?
Yeah, it would start the last payroll of the month, so February, last payroll of February.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. The most important part of this agenda is our consent agenda, and I want you to, I read every report, and y'all are doing so much work, and it's really great info, Jocelyn. I know you read it too, but it's great information on all our departments. And Lieutenant Daniel, you do a great job with COVID. Just tell it to leave so we can see your face, not your mask. Does anybody want anything off the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Amen.
Amen.
Wow.
Thank God we don't meet at 6, because it would be 9:30 right now.
Wow.
I want y'all to know.
We get to adjourn. We get to go.
You get to go home now.